in Konoha, starting by unlocking the Tenseigan. Welcome back, brave explorers of impossible worlds. We are excited to have you here to continue this odyssey together. Before we continue, everything you'll hear is pure fiction, so please don't try to replicate combat techniques at home. This wonderful story and all its rights belong to its brilliant original author. We are only the messengers of entertainment. Want another dose of adventure? Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single chapter, and if you can't wait, our Patreon has exclusive surprises you'll love. Chapter 176 Myaboku Mountain. His expression darkened for a moment before Ryūga spoke again in a sullen tone. But no matter what, Mother turning someone into a white Zetsu is incredibly cruel. If my brother and I hadn't sealed her away, you wouldn't be where you are today. You're going to release Mother, aren't you worried she'll do something cruel again? Hyūga Teru nodded, a rare gesture. You're right, turning someone into a white Zetsu is indeed incredibly cruel. I personally don't agree with it, but locking her up for 1,000 years is a bit excessive. I think she can be forgiven and released. Actually, I didn't even bother asking for your opinion, because you and Hamura will be imprisoned by me until I defeat the Otsutsuki, and even if I defeat the Otsutsuki, you won't be able to return to Earth. I'll exile you to another planet. Ryūga was furious. You're going too far, aren't you? The old man, who was relatively kind in the original novel, now launched into a barrage of abuse, which was truly eye-opening for Hyūga Teru. But Ryūga wasn't a pushover, so he wasn't particularly surprised. I know you have some abilities, but I won't give you the chance to use them. Now, I'm going to the illusion space and torture you, Hyūga Teru said, conjuring a large number of instruments from thin air and beginning to torture six paths. It wasn't that he was angry at the old man's actions, but rather that torturing him would severely damage his spirit, making it easier to control him with a Rinnegan. Pitiful wails echoed continuously within that Tsukuyomi space. After 3 days and 3 nights in that Tsukuyomi space, six paths finally regained consciousness. However, by then, he was utterly exhausted and unable to resist. With a flash of blue light, the last glimmer of light in six paths' eyes vanished, leaving him completely numb. Having done all this, Hyūga Teru finally returned home. In the days that followed, he spent his time with the researchers at the island of Summoning Beasts studying the fusion of the various tailed beasts. He also visited the dragon vein and drew a large amount of its chakra. This was his plan to surpass Kaguya, a simple addition of the power of the dragon vein to the 10 tails. While his number might be less than the 10 tails, his quality would undoubtedly surpass it, and perhaps even give rise to other special powers. Combined with his powerful Rinnegan and Tenseigan, surpassing Kaguya was a certainty. If he truly succeeded, Otsutsuki Ishiki would likely be no match for him. As for whether he could use this power to launch a counterattack against the Otsutsuki, he wasn't sure. But he was taking things one step at a time. If he could become the 11 tails Jinchuriki he theoretically desired, protecting Earth shouldn't be a problem. However, all of this depended on the success of his plan. Therefore, to make it more likely, he needed to find more powerful biological genes to increase the chances of creating 11 tails vessels. His first thought was Mount Myaboku. Though remote, the small house was still filled with laughter and chatter. Hyūga Teru rang the doorbell for a long time before the door finally opened. A tall, handsome man opened the door. Seeing Hyūga Teru's expression, his smile immediately faded. Mr. Teru. What can I do for you? Hyūga Teru asked. Let's talk outside. I'm going in. I think your family's going to be worried. Well, I'll go back and tell them first. And then I'll go out with you later. Hyūga Teru nodded, and the man immediately returned to the house. After a few murmurs from inside, the man immediately left. Okay, Mr. Teru, is there anything I can help you with? Although the man was deeply uneasy, he had been truly happy living with his children and wife these past few years. So, despite a little unease, he was still somewhat grateful to Hyūga Teru. I won't waste any more time on you, Minato. I want to go to Myaboku-sen, and I need you to use the Flying Thunder God to take me there. As soon as he finished speaking, Minato was stunned. Myaboku-san. I'm not surprised you know that place. But if you want to go there, it doesn't sound like you're going there officially. Can you tell me why? If you really want to practice or something, I can still ask the immortals there. They'll definitely allow me to take you there. Hyūga Teru waved his hand. Don't bother. I'm just going to collect some of their biological cell samples for research. Whether they agree or not, I'll do it. So you'd better take me there directly, or it'll take quite a while." Minato was stunned. While it seemed like a friendly thing to do, it also sounded a bit forceful. But then again, it seemed unlikely that the Meiboku Mountain Toads would so obediently cooperate with Hyūga Teru and offer their cells. It seemed tough to be tough. But this guy's power was unfathomable. This wouldn't be easy. Minato pondered for a moment, sighed, and nodded reluctantly. "Okay, but Mr. Teru, could you please be a little gentler? Those immortals are actually quite easy to talk to. Maybe they'll cooperate with you." Hyūga Teru smiled and nodded. "Don't worry. Although I hate trouble, I never kill innocent people. Even if a conflict arises, I'll spare their lives." Spare their lives? Minato's worry grew. The more he learned about Hyūga Teru over the years, the more terrifying he felt. It wasn't just strength, it was power. Hyūga Teru controlled practically all of Konoha. If he dared to act rashly, his children and wife might be in danger. While he didn't want to completely compromise, he felt helpless. After a moment's pause, he activated his summoning technique. He summoned a toad as tall as a man, gave a command, and then, leaving behind a shadow clone, immediately departed. The shadow clone then brought Hyūga Teru to the Toad Kingdom. Seeing the sudden appearance of Hyūga Teru, Gamatsu was stunned for a moment, looking at Minato suspiciously. "Minato-sama, what's going on? I brought you here, why did you bring others? If you wanted to bring others, you should have informed us beforehand." Minato looked embarrassed. Before he could reply, Hyūga Teru spoke bluntly. "I'm not here as a guest. I'm here to collect your body cells. If you disagree, this will be the outcome." Super Chibaku Tensei. Hyūga Teru raised his hand and threw a black ball into the sky. A terrifying suction force instantly cracked the rocks on the ground, sending chunks of them soaring into the air. In the blink of an eye, a massive circular crater several thousand meters in diameter was formed. Minato and Gamatsu, having escaped the section range, gasped in shock. "Minato-sama, this guy, is he here to demolish Mount Meiboku? What made you think you brought him here?" Minato was completely helpless, not knowing what to say. Chapter 177, Beating the Toad of Meiboku Mountain. Well, Minato hesitated, feeling awkward for a long time, still unsure what to say. Hyūga Teru, not wanting to embarrass him, answered for him. "I'm not going to tear down MT Meiboku. I'm simply here to collect your cells. If you disagree, I'll have to resort to force." Gamatsu shuddered, his face grim. "That's about right, Minato, you're incredible, bringing someone like this here. I'm going to inform the other toads. They won't sit idly by when something this serious happens." Gamatsu leaped away, gazing at the giant stone ball in the sky before quickly fleeing. "What? There's even a guy like that? I'm so pissed. I'm going to fight him." The massive, chain-smoking toad, upon hearing Gamatsu's news, flew into rage and, knife in hand, began to march towards Hyūga Teru. However, the short, bearded toad stopped him. "What are you doing, Bunta? You want to go over and fight them? Do you see that giant rock? Not to mention me, even if all the other toads joined together, they wouldn't be able to withstand that rock. Besides, Minato compromised with that guy. Do you think he's weaker?" Bunta frowned, pausing for a moment. Though he had a short temper, he wasn't immune to fear, nor did he lack an understanding of the bigger picture. He was completely subservient to Minato, and even someone who dare not speak out, he had to consider his own concerns. But his temper remained undiminished. "So we're just going to let him do whatever he wants? Do we have to give him the cells of the Great Toad Sage just because he wants them?" Fukasaku sighed. "If we'd prepared ahead of time, we might have been able to put up a fight. Now, we don't know if they really only want our cells." Bunta snorted, his mouth thick with smoke. "Are you really going to give in like this? Are you really that weak? We have so many toads in Meiboku-sen, are we still no match for him?" Shima, who had been silent the whole time, couldn't help but mutter. "Sucking a stone that big up to the sky. This is the first time I've seen it. No matter what kind of ninjutsu it is. Even ordinary ninjutsu beyond S rank can hardly compare to this ninjutsu, such a terrifying figure. I'm afraid only the first Hokage, the Shura of the ninja world, can reach the level of." Fukasaku nodded. "That's right, such terrifying strength is indeed beyond our imagination. We should prepare early and cooperate with him obediently. I just don't know how to extract body cells." "How to extract them? Is it like cutting flesh with a knife? How exactly do you cut it?" Bunta's hands creaked as he pinched the knife, almost leaving deep marks on the scabbard. If they dare cut too much, I'll fight them. I'm useless, but if Brother Bunta wants to fight, I'll join you. The toad, carrying a large bowl on his back and a trident in his hand, said with determination, his eyes narrowed. The green toad, carrying twin swords on his back, quickly echoed. I won't be left behind either. The three toads were practically the largest fighting toads in Maiboku Mountain. After the statement, Fukasaku and Shima felt somewhat helpless. They hesitated, as if wanting to offer further persuasion, but the words remained unspoken. They, too, were furious, and after a long silence, they instructed Gamadata to report. Hyūga Teru quickly began collecting toad cells. A large number of shadow clones emerged, each wielding sharp blades, charging at the toads. The toads gnashed their teeth upon seeing this, and Bunta even blew a powerful breath, exploding one of his clones. Huh? What's wrong with you, Toad? Are you trying to resist? Bunta asked with a sullen grin. I smoked too much, so I'm full of gas. I accidentally threw up. Are you not even allowed to exhale? Hyūga Teru saw clearly that this was a blatant problem, and he immediately extended a hand. Clang. The other toads around him drew their knives, and the sharp humming sound echoed continuously. Hyūga Teru couldn't help but glance at them. Are you planning to attack together? If so, then just go for it. After all, it seems like you're all pent up, and you seem very dissatisfied with me. It's a conflict that will explode sooner or later, so don't suppress it. Hyūga Teru smiled, as if what he was talking about had nothing to do with him. However, before Bunta or the toads could make a move, Fukasaku shouted. Stop it, Bunta, what's wrong with you? You offended the master, and you don't even apologize? And what did I tell you before? You said you should be respectful to the master. What were you doing just now? The tiny toad Fukasaku pointed at Bunta's nose and cursed, looking quite comical. But Bunta could only hang his head, silent. Yet, even so, Hyūga Teru suddenly gathered a large number of truth-seeking orbs in his hands. Sir? What are you doing? We can discuss something. Fukasaku's voice began to tremble, his eyes fixed on the numerous, seemingly extraordinary black balls. However, Bunta immediately drew his sword, his overwhelming aura instantly dissipating. What do you want to do? Don't think you can run wild just because you have some strength. I, the Maiboku Mountain Toad, am not someone you can mess around with. Hearing Bunta's words, Fukasaku's face turned green. Hyūga Teru, still smiling, slowly transformed the truth-seeking orbs into sticks. I won't tell you what to do. If you guys keep on refusing to cooperate, I'm running out of patience. Besides, I'd love to see you, the Maiboku Mountain Toad, too. With that, the black sticks shot out in the blink of an eye, like an arrow from a bow, piercing Bunta and the others with unerring accuracy. They had hoped to break through them, but the truth-seeking orbs flew too fast and their power was too strange. The moment it pierced into his body, all his strength was instantly pinned down, and then there were a few more puff sounds as the black stick entered his body. The toads who wanted to avoid the doubts and escape were nailed to the ground, unable to move. Bunta, who was so arrogant just now, kept twitching his mouth, staring at Hyūga Teru with gritted teeth. Fukasaku was about to collapse, and was also nailed to the ground, but with tears in his eyes. Bunta, what are you doing? Everything was fine, and we could be safe as long as we had less meat. Why did you have to cause trouble? Where did all those millions of toads come from in Maiboku Mountain? If I had known this would happen, Toad Bunta pouted, unable to say anything. Hyūga Teru, who was now in a much more convenient position, said calmly while collecting samples. You should really cooperate a bit, but don't worry if you don't. You won't die for now, your death will come later, and it won't be me who wants to kill you. Look forward to it, and treat yourselves well in the days ahead. Chapter 178 Maiboku's Yaomaru? The toads' faces immediately turned pale. But Bunta, known for his stubbornness and a bit of a broken jar, scoffed. Hell, if you want to kill me, just kill me. Why beat around the bush? All the blame is mine, Bunta's, and they have nothing to do with it. If you dare touch them, I won't let you off, even if it costs me my life. Bunta's impotent barking left Hyūga Teru speechless. He immediately controlled the Seeking Truth Jade Stick and began to vibrate violently. Bunta's previously small wound instantly grew larger, blood gushing out, a bloody mess. Bunta wailed in pain, his whole body convulsing. I can't ignore this. Since you're so indifferent, I have a message for you. It wasn't me who wanted you. It was actually a woman from 1,000 years ago. If you don't know, Go ask the Great Toad Immortal, it should tell you everything." With the exception of Bunta, who continued to wail in pain, the other toads were stunned. A woman from 1,000 years ago? Why 1,000 years ago, and a woman? That's ridiculous, isn't it? But someone of Hinata's power wouldn't need to go out of his way to lie to them. After all, if he wanted to kill them, he could have done it now. Wouldn't a lie be a waste of time? While the toads were vacant with doubt, Hinata had already harvested all their cells. Afterward, many of the toads felt regretful. It was just a few scrapes, not even as painful as the piercing of the seeking truth jade. If Bunta had been more lenient, perhaps they wouldn't have been hated. Their hearts ached with regret, and they glared at Bunta with resentment. But Bunta, with his thick skin, didn't fear the gazes. Meanwhile, Hinata entered the Toad Palace and found the still sleeping Great Toad Sage. He quietly scraped away a number of cells. Hinata's departure, accompanied by the withdrawal of the black stick, caused the toads to breathe a sigh of relief, as if they had escaped a calamity. But at this moment, they all harbored a doubt, a vague feeling that Hinata's hint might be true. But how could it be possible? The toads grew even more suspicious, and flocked to the palace. Concerned for the safety of the Great Toad Sage, and now eager to understand Hyūga Teru's reasoning, all the toads entered. Strangely enough, the Great Toad Sage seemed to anticipate their arrival and opened his eyes at just the right moment. "Oh. Fukasaku-chan, come quickly, I'm coming, master." "Are you dreaming again?" Fukasaku was terribly anxious. He had always considered the Great Toad Sage unreliable, but now he truly hoped he'd dream, perhaps even more. A clear explanation for the strange phenomenon that had just occurred. The Great Toad Sage narrowed his eyes, a rare expression of pain. Yes, it's all blood. Mount Myaboku is in trouble, and there's no escape. What? Fukasaku demanded, his eyes wide open. "Master, are you kidding me or what? Is Mount Myaboku really going to be doomed?" The Great Toad Sage continued with conviction. Yes, let's release the eggs now. Maybe a few will survive." With a clatter, Fukasaku sat down on the ground, as if he had completely lost his dream. The other toads also looked grim, their eyes fixed on Bunta. "HMPH, what are you worrying about when we haven't even finished talking? Even if he comes back, with so many of us toads running off separately, how can he kill them all without missing a single one?" Bunta's voice calmed many of the toads. But Fukasaku remained cautious. If it were that simple, the Toad Sage wouldn't be able to escape. While he hadn't seen the Toad Sage fulfill many of his prophecies, he knew of his power. He immediately inquired again. "By the way, Master, someone came here a while ago and said a woman from 1,000 years ago would come to kill us. Do you know who that woman is? Do you know her?" Upon hearing Fukasaku's words, the Toad Sage's narrowed eyes suddenly widened. "What, a woman from 1,000 years ago, is here to kill us? Who told you that?" Fukasaku-chan, being called Fukasaku-chan immediately made Fukasaku scratch his head in embarrassment. "She just came and took some cells from us, apparently for some research, but she's very special. She's incredibly powerful, and her abilities are strange. She can suck dirt and rock from the ground into the sky, creating a massive stone sphere that looks hundreds of kilometers in diameter. The flying black sticks will limit our chakra and even our strength. If she wanted to kill us, it would be easy." The Great Toad Sage's eyes widened, as if he had seen a ghost, his eyes filled with shock. Impossible. Is that person resurrected? But why would someone with the power of the Six Paths Sage come to us and say those things to us? Could that person with the power of the Six Paths be that woman's subordinate? Hearing the Great Toad Sage mutter like a madman, Fukasaku's face was utterly dismal. He swallowed hard, speaking nervously. "Master, do you really know that woman? Is there really a woman from 1,000 years ago, out to kill us?" The Great Toad Sage sighed bitterly. "If it's her, she could have killed us without us being able to escape. She's Rikudo's mother." Rikudo and his brother spent a whole month sealing their mother. In fact, if Rikudo's mother hadn't put so much effort into sealing her would have been impossible. "What?" Fukasaku's head suddenly felt dizzy, and he said in disbelief. "Rikudo's mother, how powerful is she?" "It took the Six Paths brothers a month to seal her." The Great Toad Sage nodded. "That was a life-or-death battle for all life on Earth. I paid close attention, watching it almost non-stop for a whole month. Rikudo's mother is many times more powerful than Rikudo. She's a truly destructive being." Plop, plop. A toad sat down on the ground, and the others followed suit, their mouths gaping in disbelief at what they were hearing. The Toad Kingdom was no longer as prosperous and peaceful as it once was, now filled with a dead silence. However, they didn't know that this was just a random remark made by Hyūga Teru to scare the toads. After all, after Kaguya came out, he didn't want her to get involved in any more killing. Not only because she was a woman, but also to prevent her from causing further changes in her state of mind due to killing. After all, she hadn't been out for 1,000 years. How could it be bad if she started a massacre the moment she came out? As a woman, he wouldn't allow her to kill any living creatures indiscriminately. Chapter 179 Dragon Cave. Having already visited Maiboku Mountain, they certainly wouldn't miss the Ryuchi Cave. Following Kokuzu's earlier escape, Hyūga Teru tracked down Orochimaru. After glaring Orochimaru down, she obediently led him to the Ryuchi Cave. Even as he led the way, Orochimaru kept licking his lips, which was a bit strange. By the way, Orochimaru, have you ever considered a surprise attack on me and then putting me on the lab bench? Orochimaru shuddered, then turned back with a wry smile. No, sir, you think so highly of me. I was so afraid of getting too far when I led you. How could I dare to think of such a thing? Hyūga Teru was surprised to see Orochimaru's flexibility. After all, this kind of Orochimaru wasn't seen in the original story. She couldn't help but smile. If that's the case, that's all the better. But I heard you've become a woman. Is that true? Orochimaru wouldn't have to experience the sealing of his hands now. But becoming a woman wouldn't change anything. After all, he didn't see gender discrimination. Hyūga was quite curious about Orochimaru, who didn't care about gender, even turning into a woman. It wasn't a man's curiosity about women, but a curiosity of curiosity. Imagine a man turning into a woman? Completely. It probably only happened in novels, right? But there was a difference. Orochimaru acted spontaneously, unlike the passive and helpless characters in novels. This made Hyūga very curious. Would Orochimaru find it strange to turn into a woman on his own? However, Orochimaru's face froze. Sir, can your eyes see through my clothes? Although Orochimaru asked, there was no hint of offense in his eyes. There was even a hint of fear in his gaze towards Hyūga. Granted, he was under his silver power. But Hyūga still sensed something was amiss. What? Do you think I'm the kind of guy who would fall in love with any woman I see? Orochimaru shook his head repeatedly, lowering his gaze. No, I'm mainly a little surprised that your excellency could actually know that I'm now in a woman's body. If it wasn't for the Byakugan's clairvoyance. I really can't think of any other reason. However, after saying this, Orochimaru's cheeks flushed slightly, a rare blush. Hyūga Teru was also very surprised. It wasn't that she saw him shy, but that Orochimaru had really become a snake princess. This was really hard for him to believe. But his gossiping mind was even stronger. Ahem, by the way, how long have you been a woman? Why did you become a woman in the first place? Orochimaru glanced at Hyūga Teru and asked suspiciously. About 6 months or so. I just felt young and our attributes and talents happened to be similar, so I didn't think about switching genders. Hyūga Teru rubbed his chin and nodded. So that's how it is. Logically, you've experienced women's physiological reactions 5 or 6 times already? As a man, how do you feel about this sudden physiological reaction? Please give us your thoughts. This is very important to me because I often research this aspect. The sudden mention of research made Orochimaru feel strange. He felt as if Hyūga Teru was very familiar with him. But he didn't dare not answer. Indeed, I've had it several times. At first I wasn't very used to it, but later it got much better and it didn't feel like anything. Damn, how could this be nothing? Hyūga Teru was shocked. He really didn't expect Orochimaru to be so fierce and have such a strong ability to adapt. Ahem, alright, I get it. Speaking of which, after I've collected the snake cells from the Ryuchi cave this time, you'll return to help Akatsuki complete his plan. Don't let anything get out of hand, otherwise, I don't mind seeing you die completely. Others might not be able to kill you, but I know the seal you bestow upon others is the medium for your resurrection, and I know exactly who those seals are. It had sounded strange at first, but after hearing what he'd heard, a chill ran down Orochimaru's spine. While he'd been a little afraid of Hyūga Teru, he hadn't completely surrendered. In truth, his humble demeanor was simply to observe him more closely, just as he'd observed Pine up close. But hearing about the seal completely uttered a shock. He couldn't understand how Hyūga Teru could understand him so well. Was there a spy or something? He didn't have time to dwell on it. Facing Hyūga Teru's menacing gaze, he could only respond repeatedly. Understood, sir. I will continue to help Akatsuki carry out their plan, without missing a beat. Hyūga Teru nodded with satisfaction. That's good, but you mustn't slack off. You'd better help wholeheartedly, otherwise it will affect the effectiveness of their plan. Yes, Orochimaru agreed, but he still felt a little confused. However, as a scientist after all, and having worked with conspirators for a while, he immediately understood the general idea after thinking about it. He thought, it's unlikely that Hyūga Teru is a member of Akatsuki. Perhaps he needs the Akatsuki plan to succeed, and then he will have other plans after that. Perhaps he is a mastermind. The thought of this makes his scalp tingle. This young and powerful person actually has the courage to be the mastermind behind Akatsuki, who may one day possess the 10 tails. What kind of astonishing strength does he possess to be so bold? Hissing. The high-pitched sound of a snake suddenly emanated from the white mist. Suddenly, a huge snake shadow appeared before the two of them in the hazy fog. I was wondering why that smell was so familiar. It's you, Orochimaru. Did you bring any offerings today? If not, stay in my belly and repent, a resounding voice echoed, accompanied by a powerful gust of wind, rapidly dispersing the white mist. A gigantic, dark purple snake towered over the two men. It was none other than Mandrake, the giant war snake from the Ryuchi caverns, a nemesis of Orochimaru. Hyūga Teru had never seen one, but his memory of Mandrake was deeply etched in his mind. Especially the way it always attacked Orochimaru the moment it appeared, as if it didn't take him seriously. While Mandrake was certainly powerful, it shouldn't have been able to withstand Orochimaru's blows. So why was Orochimaru so afraid of it? Speaking of which, Orochimaru, you don't seem to have much presence here. A mere beast dares to challenge you. Before Orochimaru could reply, Mandrake's stern eyes glared at Hyūga Teru. Orochimaru, your subordinate seems a little disobedient. He seems to be full of blood and energy. Did you call him here to serve me? Orochimaru broke out in a cold sweat. This wench was really asking for trouble. Not only did he shout at him, but now he dared to shout at the godlike existence Hyūga Teru. Chapter 180 White Snake Immortal. Tisk tisk, you're so arrogant. Orochimaru, you should really reflect on why you're being manipulated by such a beast. Manza flew into rage upon hearing this, but Hyūga Teru didn't give him a chance. His Rinnegan's eyes flashed. Manza suddenly quieted, just like Orochimaru, instantly bowed to his knees by the glare. Orochimaru was terrified. However, unlike Orochimaru, Manza had been hypnotized by Hyūga Teru. Manza, now you answer everything I say. Understand? Hearing this, Orochimaru felt like choking. He suddenly understood why Hyūga Teru had threatened him before and yet knew precisely where the other bodies he could resurrect were. With just one glare and one casual question, Orochimaru must have known everything immediately. He even suspected Hyūga Teru had done this to him before. Now, his inner confusion resolved, he became even more cautious. At that moment, the stunned Manza opened his mouth. Understood. Hearing Manza's words, Orochimaru's face darkened even further. But Hyūga Teru didn't care what he thought and inquired again. From what I know, Orochimaru is quite powerful. Why can you treat her so harshly? Manza was silent for a moment before saying, I think besides my immense strength, which scares her just by looking at me, it's also because I helped her steal the scales of the White Snake Sage. The White Snake Sage's power is beyond Orochimaru's reach, and she's afraid I'd tell him about her. Hearing this, Hyūga Teru finally understood. It seemed like Orochimaru could indeed completely transform into a white snake. So, her genes came from the White Snake Sage? Wait. It seems the White Snake Sage is female. So, Orochimaru reincarnating as a female would be the best choice. No wonder. No wonder this guy suddenly reincarnated as a female, even overcoming things like menstruation. Speaking of which, in Boruto, she even gave birth to a child with herself. Suddenly, everything seemed to make sense. So that's how Princess Orochimaru came to be. After inquiring about this, Orochimaru's legs nearly gave out, his hoarse voice stammering a few words. That? Lord Teru. The Snake Sage's power is unfathomable. You should be able to handle him, right? After all, Ryuchi Cave isn't a friendly place, and snakes are quite ferocious creatures. Hyūga Teru smiled calmly. Of course I understand that, but since you dared to ask you to bring me here, you must have your reasons. Just stay by my side. Snakes, I'll kill them all in one swift. Hyūga Teru spoke, and began stabbing the snake with a stick. The snake suddenly woke up from the pain, but the next moment it was held captive again. Even when Hyūga Teru collected some cells from the cloak, the snake was unable to break free from the illusion. As the two of them stood there, the snake remained stunned. Along the way, various attractive snake women appeared. They were quite attractive, but under the Rinnegan, no illusions could be applied. While some snakes might appear delicate and charming, even capable of expressing their own unique expressions, the sight of that enormous body immediately threw them off. Hyūga Teru wasted no time immobilizing them all and immediately extracting their cells. The entire Raikage cave was quickly swept away, but just as they neared the White Snake Immortal's location, a dazzling white light suddenly shone. Oh no! It's the white excitation technique. Lord Teru, has your vision been affected? Orochimaru adjusted his vision and, upon looking at Hyūga Teru, was stunned. A towering white giant suddenly rose to its feet. The thick, imposing armor and the seemingly formidable sword sent a shudder through her. Wow, such a mighty giant. Is this your full power, Lord Teru? Hyūga Teru scoffed, looking at Orochimaru, arms folded. Have you seen me in my prime? Are you sure a mere grain of sand like this is worthy of my full might? Bang, bang, bang. A series of massive explosion-like sounds echoed. Suddenly, several gigantic white snakes appeared around Hyūga Teru, lashing with their tails or biting with their sharp teeth. Any ordinary person would have been devoured alive without a trace of blood or skin left. But Hyūga Teru's white giant stood firm, unscathed. Even at this point, White Snake Sage, are you still not going to come out? Your magic has no effect on me. If you don't, I'll be brutal. Suddenly, the frantic attack of the giant white snakes paused, each gazing calmly at Hyūga Teru. I didn't expect your thing to be so large and hard. Since you wish to see the White Snake Sage, then I'll grant you your wish. I hope you can withstand the White Snake Sage's wrath, for he has witnessed everything you've done. The giant white snakes walked away. Slowly, from the darkness, a gigantic and imposing white snake emerged, confronting Hyūga Teru. But its gaze suddenly shifted to Orochimaru. Orochimaru, how dare you bring someone like that? Aren't you afraid I'll kill you? Though his face was pale, Orochimaru forced a smile and looked at Hyūga Teru. Master Teru, I don't know what kind of being it is, but it's immune to all taijutsu and ninjutsu. You'd better be careful. Now that their relationship was broken, there was no need for her to flatter the White Snake Sage. After all, he had the power to resurrect. The White Snake Sage was no more dangerous than Hyūga Teru, so she knew what to do. Hearing Orochimaru's warning, Hyūga Teru was momentarily surprised, then fixed his gaze on the White Snake Sage. So that's how it is. I thought you were just a puppet. No wonder Orochimaru claimed you were immune to all ninjutsu and taijutsu. Even if we destroy you with taijutsu and ninjutsu, you still have other puppets, right? You must have created quite a few over the millennia, so that's why you, the White Snakes, are known as the Immortals. As Hyūga Teru spoke, the White Snake Sage froze. Then he gritted his teeth. Don't think you can see through this body of mine. This isn't just any puppet, nor is it a shadow clone. It possesses the qualities of life itself and can use all my ninjutsu. Before you discover my true form, these puppets of mine will wear you down. And what can you do to me? Hearing the White Snake Immortal's arrogant words, Hyūga Teru smiled. Even if you're willing to fight for losses, I won't lose an inch. Besides, hiding anywhere in front of my eyes is useless. Super Shinra Tensei. Without the slightest warning, Hyūga Teru activated the power of the Rinnegan and the Samsara Eye, instantly whipping up a massive gust of wind, sucking everything in a certain direction inward. Chapter 181 Creating a True Dragon. Hiss. A long hiss pierced everyone's eardrums. But the giant white snake not far away kept biting the rock, preventing itself from being sucked away. Hyūga pulled away a lot of the rock, though the snake's rock seemed remarkably solid. Hyūga didn't hesitate, staring intently at the solid rock, and it began to warp. Godly power, the warping area grew larger and larger, until the spot where the giant white snake had bitten it was shattered by the immense suction. Despite its tight grip on the rock, the snake was completely sucked in. The snake's massive body, like willow catkins in the wind, was lifted up and landed in front of Hyūga. It seemed to be in pain, tumbling in the air until it landed on the ground with a thud. Tisk tisk, this is what you call a White Snake Immortal. How rare. How did you find me? Did you use any special senses? The White Snake Immortal's expression was solemn, and his voice was tinged with nervousness. Hinata Haruto asked calmly. Why do you care how I found you? Once your true form is revealed, you'll be dead soon. The White Snake Immortal flew into a rage. What a joke. I've lived for thousands of years. How can a human like you, who's only lived for a few decades, imagine my methods? Try this trick. Floating dust held dance. A flash of white light shot out, and countless tiny particles in the air danced madly at an incredible speed, flying towards Hinata Teru and Orochimaru. Orochimaru's face turned pale. But Hinata Teru remained calm, raising a hand. How dare you bring out a mere speck of dust to embarrass yourself? Not only can I see it all, but even if I couldn't see it, I couldn't get close to it. Super Shinra Tensei, boom. The air instantly erupted with a huge explosion, and the wildly dancing dust particles immediately turned back, flying towards the White Snake Immortal himself. The White Snake Immortal also lost his balance, and along with the dust, he plummeted backwards, slamming heavily into the stone wall, shattering it only when he stopped. With just this one blow, the White Snake Immortal gushed out a stream of blood, gushing out like a fountain. He stared at Hinata Teru in disbelief. You, who are you, and yet you're so powerful? We at Raikage Cave have never provoked you, so why are you attacking us? The White Snake Immortal finally understood what kind of being he had provoked. He began to panic, his entire body trembling. Seeing this, Orochimaru was delighted, a rare smile plastered on his face. Hinata Teru, on the other hand, stared directly at the White Snake Immortal, his voice imperious. I come when I want, and I leave when I want. I want to fight you, and you can't stop me. Don't you think it's too late to say that now? The White Snake Immortal shuddered. But before he could react, 7 long black sticks pierced his body. What? What is this? Why am I so weak? What is this? Hinata Teru ignored him, holding a knife and approaching the White Snake Sage's wound, and began to extract cells. Don't worry, you're excellent experimental material. You won't die until your surplus value is exhausted. After collecting a large piece of flesh, Hinata Teru beckoned to Orochimaru. Sir, what are your instructions? Is there anything I can help you with? Seeing Orochimaru's servile demeanor, the White Snake Sage nearly gritted his teeth. But the next moment, Hinata Teru's words made him feel dizzy and wanted to bang his head against the wall. Speaking of which, Orochimaru, you must be quite accomplished in biological research, right? To be honest, this Raikage Cave is called Raikage Cave, but there's not even a single dragon, only snakes. I don't think this is good. I think we need a real dragon to shake up the cave. I once collected cells from a girl named Raish from Kusagakure village. She has a unique bloodline that allows her to perform a dragon life reincarnation technique. It seems like a rather strange technique, one involving dragons. I wonder if we could try using it to transform her into a dragon. It was naturally referring to the White Snake Sage. Hearing this, it almost wanted to commit suicide. But somehow, the black stick had restricted its chakra and physical strength. Now it was completely unable to move. Orochimaru, upon hearing Hinata Teru's suggestion, suddenly became interested. He looked at the White Snake Sage with no respect, as if he were treating materials on a lab bench, filled with a naked desire to explore. I've also learned about dragon fate reincarnation. Actually, turning it into a dragon might be a bit of a stretch, since it's a healing jutsu after all, but I'll try to transform its power and see if it can. It's just that, Lord Teru, I'm a little lacking in strength. I might not be able to suppress the White Snake Sage. I'm afraid the experiment might go awry. With this statement, Orochimaru revealed his unparalleled expertise and vast knowledge. Hinata Teru was stunned for a moment before responding. I understand. I'll send a shadow clone to help you suppress it. But what do you mean by transforming its power? Orochimaru answered immediately. It's actually the dragonfly technique. I implanted her with the bloodlines of both the Fuma clan and the Ryuma Tensei clan. You control her and let her perform the dragonfly technique. If all goes well, we'll see results in about 6 months. The White Snake Immortal, sprawled on the ground, felt a mixture of sadness and anger, utterly furious. But it still couldn't break free from the seeking truth jade stick. Upon hearing Orochimaru's relatively complete and daring experimental plan, Hinata Teru was astonished and even somewhat impressed. He hadn't actually had any experimental ideas, merely conjectures from old novels he'd read, casually mentioned to Orochimaru. He hadn't expected Orochimaru to quickly perfect his experiment. However, based on Orochimaru's thinking, he had some more ideas. Ahem, I think transforming into a dragon is not a simple matter, and it is very important. This is related to the appearance of the world's first dragon, so we need to be more cautious. Although the dragonfly technique is just to accumulate strength and undergo a transformation of the body, it is ultimately in line with the metamorphosis of creatures like dragonflies. By then, the white snake sage might transform incorrectly, and turning into a bug would not be good. Besides, even if the transformation is successful, it will take the dragonfly decades of accumulated strength to be accurate. If it is only half a year, it may not be able to achieve the transformation of the white snake sage. Orochimaru has long followed Hyūga Teru's lead and felt that what he said made sense, so he immediately continued to ask. Then, sir, how do you think the experiment should be carried out? In fact, I originally thought that you were just doing the experiment for fun. Since you said so, then I will definitely cooperate with you to the best of my ability. Chapter 182 Tsunade. Seeing Orochimaru's cooperation, Hyūga Teru wasn't worried at all, but rather filled with intense interest. It must take a lot of energy for a snake to transform into a dragon. Look at it, it hasn't transformed in thousands of years. Either it's not strong enough, or it just doesn't know how. I don't really have any advice on that. But I can provide any materials you need. You must develop a good dragon transformation plan, but the white snake sage is the most powerful being in the entire Raikage cave. It's best not to waste these materials yet. You can start with other snakes of its kind. Understood. Orochimaru felt incredibly relieved after hearing this. He even felt like Hyūga Teru understood him and knew exactly how to conduct the experiment. Of course, he agreed without the slightest objection. The white snake sage, on the other hand, was completely devastated. These people wanted to use not only him but other snakes for experiments as well. The thought filled him with sorrow, and he regretted his previous impulsiveness. But there's no such thing as regret. After feeling deeply saddened, he began a journey of endless resentment. It hated Hyūga Teru, Orochimaru, and all of humanity. It planned to survive intact and powerful, becoming a true dragon. It would tear Hyūga Teru and Orochimaru apart, then devour all of humanity. The white snake sage harbored unwavering hatred, but Hyūga Teru ignored it. After all, they were different creatures, and it was natural for them to hate and fight each other. He had no reason to let it go. Even if he threatened it temporarily to stop hating him, in his absence, the white snake sage might secretly resent him again. There was no way to stop it, so he just let it go. After collecting the cell material from the dragon cave, Hyūga Teru set about searching for the slippery forest. It wasn't too difficult. He mobilized intelligence personnel to search for Tsunade, and they found her immediately. Hyūga Teru boldly headed to where Tsunade was. Upon arriving in town, the intelligence personnel's tip revealed that Tsunade was gambling heavily in the casino. Hyūga didn't rush to look for her immediately, but instead grabbed several boxes of money and ran to the casino. Come on. Hurry up, big or small, buy now and leave. Zhang Luo, shaking the dice, enthusiastically urged everyone to place their bets. But the spot where most eyes lingered was Tsunade's. Not just because she was big, but because she was truly big. A fat sheep presented to your doorstep, how could you not take it? Tsunade knelt, holding a stack of chips. After a long hesitation, she finally slapped the wad of money in one direction. I'm betting big, I'm betting on leopard. Hyūga Teru pushed open the door and tossed a box of money. The box opened, spilling countless stacks of high-denomination bills. Seeing this, the others in the casino took a deep breath. Betting on leopard, are you crazy? And putting up so much money? Yeah, a leopard might not appear once a day, and this time it's a leopard. How bold, unbelievable. 5 dice and you're betting on leopard? Are you sure you're not just throwing money away? As everyone chattered, their breathing became more rapid. It wasn't just Hyūga Teru's betting options that were strange, but also the sheer amount of banknotes. A cursory glance revealed at least tens of millions. A single roll of the dice with a $10 million bet had these seasoned gamblers in stitches. Tsunade couldn't help but glance at Hyūga Teru a few more times, and upon seeing his appearance, her gaze fixed on him. You look like a Hyūga guy. You can't use clairvoyance when betting on dice. How is that panther bet? Are you just giving it away? Hyūga Teru smiled, glancing at Tsunade. After scrutinizing her, he smiled. I never lose at gambling. How about we set up another round besides this one? Tsunade paused, puzzled. Hyūga Teru's gaze was unabashed. But hearing him propose another bet suddenly piqued her interest. Her arms folded, clothes threatening to burst, as she stared at him playfully. Then tell me about it. I have an unwavering passion for gambling, Hyūga Teru replied with a smile. What a coincidence. I always win at every bet, so I'm really enthusiastic. Let's put it simply. Let's bet on whether I can win the leopard this time. If I win, you have to promise me one thing. If I don't, I'll pay you 400 million, how about that? Hyūga Teru's words immediately brought the atmosphere in the casino to fever pitch. Although Tsunade was often called a fat sheep, Hyūga Teru's behavior was truly a giant fat sheep, the kind that could be slaughtered and eaten for a lifetime. It truly made those around him breathe heavily with envy, and Tsunade's eyes widened in surprise. However, she didn't refuse. Instead, she immediately burst into heroic spirit and shattered the coffee table with one palm. Okay, this is a sure win game. Woo-woo. Tsunade was about to agree excitedly, but Shizune, standing beside her, immediately covered her mouth. Immediately, she was displeased and pulled Shizune's hand. Tsunade-sama, please don't agree to this. I think you'll be in trouble. Better not agree, and similar things have happened before. While the stakes weren't as high as this time, have you forgotten how many people have won against you? In all the years I've been with you, it's been over 50. You owe them something, almost 50 people. And they're asking you to marry them. Shizune's words stunned the others. It seemed this woman was already used to being a defaulter. The dealer's hand, about to roll the dice, froze in midair. Suddenly, he remembered that while the fat sheep was fat for them, it was also strangely fat for everyone else. This was adding another gamble. Wouldn't it be a bit bad for them? While there was still a strong chance of a smaller outcome, Shizune's words still frightened them. By then, Tsunade had already broken free from Shizune's grasp. She straightened her wrinkled, snow-white clothes and spoke stubbornly. What a joke. Leopards are so rare, it's a wonder you can even win the bet. I'm betting on the small one, I'm a sure winner this time. The other gamblers, then why are you betting on the big one? Tsunade, are you not allowed to exploit a bug? Humph, she's going to win both rounds. Now that the betting is set up, you, the dealer, may begin. Alright, the dealer immediately and carefully picked up the box containing the dice and began to randomly roll them with all the dice rolling skills he'd learned over a lifetime. The others stared at the box, shouting small frantically. Whack. The dice stopped rolling because the surroundings had suddenly become quiet, and the last lingering sound was still audible. Everyone's heartbeat quickened, and they stared intently at the box. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, Subjugating Tsunade. 5, 6, Leopard, the dealer's startled voice uttered. The entire casino fell eerily silent. But then a flurry of curses erupted, undoubtedly due to the high spirits of the earlier gambling. Many had bet on small. Now that the leopard had come out, they'd all lost everything. So, unable to contain their anger, they erupted in curses. Of course, their fury was impotent. They couldn't possibly curse Hyūga. But if they knew Hyūga could predict the future, they'd surely regret it. Meanwhile, Tsunade, who had made a significant bet with Hyūga, remained remarkably calm, as if she hadn't lost much at all. It seemed as if she hadn't just made the big bet. Her demeanor was like a deadbeat, leaving Hyūga in a state of both laughter and tears. However, the casino had closed early because of Hyūga's sudden appearance. After all, the leopard had multiplied his bet by 360%, turning his 10 million bet into 360 million. Not to mention a small casino, the entire town probably didn't have that much in a year. With the years of savings wiped out in an instant, and Hyūga acting so erratically, how could they dare continue gambling? But the casino was closing, giving Hyūga Teru the chance to treat Tsunade to drink. Tsunade was a beauty you could never tire of, especially those voluptuous figures. They were truly breathtaking and captivating. He'd wanted to be buried there for a whole year. When he first arrived, he'd already been thinking about how to win Tsunade over. Leaving her alone would be a waste. After all, getting close to her would probably get him killed, so he might as well let her take him in. After all, there was a precedent with Madarumi, so Tsunade wouldn't have any problem. So, he came up with a simple, high-stakes gamble. Of course, he wasn't expecting Tsunade to cheat. But he used courtesy first, then force, establishing a connection, then offering her something she couldn't refuse. Finally, his elite troops would storm through the ranks, securing this beauty, coveted by nearly every protagonist, and it was practically a sure thing. In the tavern, thick with the aroma of alcohol, Hyūga Teru and Tsunade Shizune sat opposite each other. Tsunade wasn't the least bit polite, enjoying the dishes Hyūga Teru ordered and drinking the fine wine he'd specifically requested. He even ate a bunch and ordered more. Hyūga Teru just smiled, not taking it seriously. Speaking of which, Lady Tsunade, you have quite a good appetite, Tsunade said, swirling her glass of sake and downing it in one gulp. Haha, that's right, since you recognize me, Tsunade, can't you be more direct and tell me why you're here? Did the village ask you to come to me? What happened that required you to beg me for a favor through a bet? And how did you know it was going to be a disaster? Questions followed one after another, but none of them hit the point. Of course, only Tsunade herself felt that this was the real topic of conversation. Hyūga Teru shook his head. The village didn't arrange for me to come to you. In fact, it was all my own decision from the beginning. As for that bet just now, it was purely fate. I'm the perfect match for you. As for your request after winning the bet just now, it was just a very common request for you to marry me unconditionally. With that, both Shizune and Tsunade were completely stunned. She hadn't expected such a young and handsome man to suddenly appear. A young man from the Hyūga clan, and come up with such an offer. Even though Tsunade felt she had everything under control, she was completely stunned and had trouble reacting. This man had come to her specifically and asked her to marry him. Although this wasn't uncommon. But the bet just now was truly bizarre, and the idea of fate had really made her inexplicably confused. Although she always lost in gambling, she had also won before. Even though they were small wins, the chances of a leopard being a winner were so small that it was practically a miracle. After a moment of shock, she rested her chin on one hand and said, "That sounds a little unbelievable. You look like you're only in your 20s. Do you know how old I am now?" Hyūga Teru said nonchalantly. "In my 30s, probably. You didn't look old until you were 70, so what's wrong with being in your 30s? Tsunade smiled. "In a few years, I'll be 40, and I'm still quite young. It's strange that you've come all this way to see me. Are you attracted to me in some other way? If I can help, I'll try. But if it's something that really puts me in a difficult position, I'm sorry I can't agree." Tsunade's tone grew colder. Hyūga Teru, however, remained affable. "I've made it very clear. I'm really looking for you to marry me. We're a good match in many ways. Like gambling, you always lose, and I always win, so we just break even. You probably can't sleep well every night, which is why you're addicted to gambling and drinking. Marrying me will help you solve that problem." Tsunade couldn't help but look at Hyūga Teru with amusement. "That's quite interesting. Even if I were the best doctor on the continent, I couldn't solve this old problem, and you say you can. I'd like to hear your solution," Hyūga Teru said bluntly. "Your sleep problems aren't really a big deal. It's simply because you're struggling with a painful past. Almost as soon as you fall asleep, you're reminded of it. Besides doing something joyful with you every day, I can also help you fundamentally resolve your past pain. Of course, you still have to make a choice between your lover and your brother. Who's better? Personally, I think you should choose your brother. I'll be your future lover, and I wouldn't be so foolish as to resurrect a rival." Such a blatant and somewhat insane statement was spoken with such conviction. Initially, Tsunade thought Hyūga Teru was trying to trick her, but her intuition told her that there might be more to the story. But, could her brother really be resurrected? How could such a thing be possible? Even her second grandfather, who frequently developed forbidden techniques, only managed the unethical impure world reincarnation technique. Resurrection is simply impossible. And Hyūga Teru looked so young. Soon, suspicion filled her heart. Her curious gaze turned to questioning. "Although I really want my brother to be resurrected, and if you can really resurrect him, I can consider what you wish for, but is it really possible?" Hyūga Teru had anticipated this, and in front of Tsunade, he summoned 2 identical chickens. He killed one of them very quickly and placed its blood on a scroll covered with runes. Then, facing the other living chicken, he performed an inexplicable ninjutsu. Soon, the living chicken was wrapped in something like mud and turned into a lifeless chicken. Seeing this, Tsunade completely lost her patience. "Who the hell are you? And why do you use the forbidden technique of impure world reincarnation? You use this ninjutsu to deceive me. You must be tired of living." Chapter 184 The Reality of the World. Hyūga Teru calmly shook his head. You're so impatient. I haven't even finished resurrecting it yet. And look. I'm about to resurrect the chicken I just killed. Tsunade frowned, folding her arms in anger. It's come to this, and you're still saying it's not impure world reincarnation. Reviving an impure world body counts as a. The moment Tsunade spoke, Hyūga Teru's hands shone with the sky blue light. The rich aura of life immediately caught Tsunade's attention. You can actually harness life force? How is that possible? Hyūga Teru said triumphantly. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean others can't. Actually, Chiyo of Tsunagakure can do it, but she's not as proficient as I am. As he spoke, the chick began to slowly change color. Its once dull luster, at a visible speed, transformed into vibrant yellow. Its dull eyes suddenly lit up with color. Soon, the chick was able to move on its own and even began to peck at food, appearing lively and active. Tsunade was stunned. Shizune stared at the chick, unblinking. So cute, but how do we know it's the same one from before? Tsunade narrowed her eyes, also feeling a bit troubled. I'm not very experienced with resurrection, but you really shouldn't have made two identical chickens just now. Hyūga Teru was also frustrated. He wanted to make different ones, too. But their incompatibility was so poor that injecting life into them would be problematic. For the most part, it would be extremely difficult for two creatures with incompatibility to connect their bodies and souls through life force. The resurrection might fail. So he could only sacrifice the clone. Norki would also be resurrected using a similar method. I can't help it. Resurrection has only reached this point in my research. If I use a different method, the resurrection might fail. If you don't believe me, I can run an experiment for you, but it will cost me my lifespan. If you still don't believe me, I'll suffer a great loss. Speaking of which, Tsunade, don't accuse me of taking advantage of you. Resurrection comes at a great cost. Although I've mastered this technique, it still costs a lot of lifespan. Don't think I'm taking advantage of you by asking you to marry me just to help you resurrect your brother. You should actually compensate me, but by the way, I already have a wife and children. But for some reason, I need you to join me. Think about it carefully. It sounded heavy. But Hyūga Teru was as servile as he could be. As for resurrection, he could do it any way he wanted. As for the reason, that was of course nonsense. But at this point, even if there wasn't a reason, Tsunade could probably come up with one. Tsunade's expression was now very complex. A look of shock, anger, worry, and longing flashed across her face. Shizune was stunned, staring at Tsunade with a hint of worry. After a long moment, Tsunade finally uttered a long, drawn-out sentence. I think I'd better think about it. This is really too sudden, but if you can prioritize resurrecting my brother, I think all the other problems won't be a problem. With this, Tsunade beckoned Shizune to leave. Her words implied that Hyūga Teru should first resurrect her brother. In reality, the situation was already quite obvious. The hesitation now was probably due to the fear that the resurrection was a scam. If he took the body, but her brother wasn't resurrected, it would be a grave loss. It was understandable that Tsunade would consider this so carefully. Hyūga Teru would probably have considered it the same way. So, without further hesitation, she left. Arranged for Scorpion to quickly cultivate a clone of Rope Tree. 2 days later, Tsunade, looking slightly haggard, met Hyūga Teru again. But she remained silent, as if still hesitant. Seeing Tsunade so haggard after just 2 days' absence, Hyūga Teru didn't want to burden her with suffering any longer. How about this? I'll resurrect your brother first. As for whether you want to marry me, you can reconsider. Hearing Hyūga Teru's words, Tsunade finally raised her sorrowful eyes, which then turned to a gleam of curiosity. Are you really willing to resurrect my brother first? If it's really possible, then I have no problem with that. I just hope you'll treat me well in the future. Tsunade's face flushed deeply as she spoke, like a young girl just beginning to fall in love, suddenly hearing the sweet words of her lover. Despite the significant age difference between them, she felt inexplicably shy. Since when had the search for support become her deepest desire? She hadn't imagined she'd ever find one again. After all, those closest to her had mysteriously died. Hyūga Teru's actions were like extending a powerful helping hand to her from the depths of her despair. Even though she was facing a man who looked incredibly young, her heart still pounded uncontrollably. Hearing her reply, Hyūga Teru was in high spirits, and he couldn't help but put his arm around her waist. Then why not wait for today? Come with me today. I've been preparing for this for a long time. As soon as you give the nod, I'll immediately resurrect your brother." Though she was caught off guard by the embrace, Tsunade's heartbeat inexplicably quickened, her breaths hot as she heard what Hyūga Teru said. Are you telling the truth? Am I dreaming?" Hyūga Teru smiled and pinched her plumpness. "It feels so real it couldn't be more real, and it's so beautiful. Since you've confirmed it's okay, then show me what your husband is capable of." Despite this normally offensive gesture, Tsunade surprisingly didn't resist, which once again stunned Shizune. But the speed with which they were becoming so close was even more unimaginable. She felt lost, unsure what to do. It was like she was an outsider. She was an outsider to begin with. She felt a pang of discomfort, as if someone important to her was being taken away. "Come on, Shizune is still here. How could you do this in front of her? I already know I'm not dreaming." Hiss. "Can't you be a little gentler, you bastard?" Hyūga Teru was immediately embarrassed. "Ahem. I lost control of my strength. Shizune, you should come too. We won't be strangers anymore." "What? Can I really come too?" Shizune felt a little dreamy. But suddenly, Hyūga Teru also put his arm around her waist. "Just go. It's not a big deal. It's a good opportunity to see the world. There are still many things that will surprise you in the future." Shizune was startled by the sudden embrace around her waist. "This. But before she could finish, the three of them vanished. Chapter 185 Novice Night. After several twists and turns, the three of them arrived at Scorpion's laboratory. Seeing the massive glass chamber housing Rope Tree, Tsunade was deeply shocked. He's already," Hyūga Teru quickly explained. "This isn't your brother. This is just an identical clone, grown from your brother's cells, but to avoid causing too much harm to nature and unnecessary obstacles to his resurrection, he'll remain in a state of slumber, like a vegetative state." Is that so?" Despite being told this, Tsunade couldn't help but feel shocked. However, recalling the chicken experiment she'd seen earlier, something suddenly occurred to her, and she began to feel a surge of anticipation. "So, he's going to be resurrected now? Isn't that a bit too soon, huh?" "Are you sure it's too soon?" Hyūga Teru's expression was a bit strange. "He's your brother. I thought you'd have a bias on this matter, but it seems you have a different opinion than I do. So what do you think of me?" Tsunade bristled. But she was actually just having trouble accepting it. The thought of her brother's resurrection, she hadn't yet figured out how to accept it. He'd been so engrossed in her dreams. But now, his resurrection felt a bit too sudden. After all, she was used to missing the dead. She wasn't used to seeing someone suddenly resurrected. Besides, she'd be getting married right after her brother's resurrection. Her complex emotions were wavering. Seeing Tsunade's hesitation, Hyūga Teru spoke firmly. "It's only a matter of time, so it doesn't matter if he's resurrected sooner or later. You'll have to face this sooner or later, so why not have it happen sooner rather than later? It's decided. Your brother will be resurrected today. As for whether you can adapt to it, you'll have to adapt even if you can't." With that, Hyūga Teru walked over to the incubator. Opening the chamber, the water inside automatically drained, revealing a young boy with incredibly fair skin and a slightly childish face. A child so young, dying in war, this would have been unimaginable in his previous life. But meeting Hyūga Teru now was his greatest fortune. Of course, it was also because he had a good sister. Without further delay, Hyūga Teru made a seal. Mysterious runes immediately appeared on the ground, surrounding the clone of Naoki. Soon, the clone was covered with a layer of black and gray, and the skin became dull and lifeless. However, the eyes that were originally closed suddenly opened directly, but they were slightly darker, as if they had just returned from hell. These are all characteristics of the impure world reincarnation. Naoki was almost confused, not knowing what was going on. But after glancing around for a few times, his eyes fixed on Tsunade, who had a sad face. "This is my sister. How did I see my sister?" At this time, Hyūga Teru's hands glowed with blue light and pressed on Naoki. "What's so strange about that? Not only did you meet your sister, you also met your brother-in-law. You should be more polite, kid. After all, your brother-in-law is resurrecting you now." "What? My sister is married? What do you mean by resurrection? Wasn't I already dead?" "My condition," Naoki continued to mutter in confusion, but suddenly his voice stopped, and his eyes widened. Why do I feel like my body is getting a little warmer? This can't be true. I can actually be resurrected. Hyūga Teru was speechless. This kid seemed a little unintelligent. Yeah, kid, you should think about who could have taken your sister down. It's just a resurrection, it's no problem for your brother-in-law, really? Brother-in-law, you are so powerful? Then after I'm resurrected, can you teach me? Naoki began to look forward to it. But Hyūga Teru's face suddenly turned serious. This isn't something a child like you can master. Resurrection comes at a terrible cost for most people. Even I, your brother-in-law, can't resurrect too many. Do you know what I'm injecting into you now? Feel it for yourself. It's life force. How much life force can a person have? How much will you have left after giving it to others? A barrage of questions left Naoki pale. Suddenly, his body warmed to a certain degree. The very core of his being began to beat rapidly. It was his heart. If it was starting to revive, how far could resurrection be? Very impressive, brother-in-law, but the price you paid wasn't small, was it? You're bringing a human being back to life. Hyūga Teru smiled easily. What's the big deal? For your sister, this loss is nothing. If you want to thank someone, thank your sister. She has such good eyesight, she spotted me in the crowd. Our story could last for 3 days and 3 nights. We're actually quite a good match, Hyūga Teru boasted without hesitation, launching into a rambling tirade. Naoki's eyes immediately filled with stars, and he exclaimed, Hyūga Teru, you're awesome. Tsunade, on the other hand, looked incredibly strange, though tears still welled up in her eyes. After a touching reunion between brother and sister, Hyūga Teru left with Tsunade and Shizune. Tsunade had changed drastically since her brother's resurrection. She was practically at the mercy of Hyūga Teru. Neither of them had married yet, having already gone through all the subsequent customs. Hyūga Teru was steady as a dog, while Tsunade was incredibly shy, like a grown-up girl. Of course, when she truly let loose, she truly had the air of a female knight. However, compared to the more experienced maid Irumi, Tsunade was still a bit green. As a newbie, she needed him to take charge and personally teach her everything. But as a strong woman capable of becoming Hokage, she was a quick learner, and within a few days, she gradually mastered the ropes. But she was still outmatched by Hyūga Teru's seemingly endless stamina. The two of them were inseparable, clinging to each other from morning till night. It was a week before Tsunade even thought of Naoki. I have to say that Tsunade has changed a lot. The sadness on her face has completely disappeared, and her face is full of happiness. She is also very obedient. When Hyūga Teru asked for slug cells, she gave them to him without saying a word. So far, he has taken all the better biological cells in the ninja world. Therefore, the research progress has been much faster. Although the research workload has increased, with a magical skill of shadow clone, it has not actually increased the burden too much. The days passed. But strangely, Orochimaru was the first to complete the dragonization research. Looking at the dragon that was so familiar to him, Hyūga Teru felt a little incredible. Although it died on the first day after it was created. But the appearance was indeed the powerful creature in his impression. It was a pity that it died, and he didn't even say a word. But this is just an ordinary creature in the dragon cave. It is not the most powerful snakes. Maybe there is a chance to see a living dragon. Chapter 186 Pain captures the nine-tailed fox. Orochimaru, can't you just clone this dragon? Are you confident you can completely transform the other snakes into dragons? Hyūga Teru asked Orochimaru, pointing at the long dragon. Orochimaru shook his head helplessly. It's not that I don't want to, sir. This dragon isn't fully developed yet, and I'm just showing you the initial results. The dragon transformation technique still needs improvement. As for transforming other snakes into dragons, the success rate isn't very high. The most likely candidate is the white snake sage, Hyūga Teru suddenly realized. So that's how it is. Let's continue our research. Since we've already achieved some success, the rest shouldn't be too difficult, right? Is there anything I can help you with? Orochimaru pondered for a moment. It's just the energy quality issue. I wonder if you have a solution, sir. I believe the failure of the dragon transformation also has something to do with the energy quality. As for the white snake sage's ease of success, it's mainly due to the high quality of his own energy, and secondly, his control over that power. But we don't necessarily need a living dragon, we just need one that's successfully transformed. Hyūga Teru nodded. Your idea is excellent. How about I arrange for some tailed beasts to help you with your experiments? No matter how powerful the tailed beasts are, I can find them for you, from 1 to 9, Orochimaru was immediately astonished. Sir, can you really subdue 1 to 9 tailed beasts from my experiments? I remember Akatsuki already has quite a few tailed beasts. How is that even possible? Hyūga Teru half smiled. Just ask. If I say I can do it, I can. Understood, Sir. Orochimaru respectfully agreed, immediately stating his needs. Hyūga Teru quickly left after answering. Honestly, if Orochimaru wasn't temporarily unable to fully control him, he would have actually put him directly into the research for the 11 Tails container. Orochimaru's research capabilities were truly formidable. However, having him research dragons now was a supplementary project, a subtle aid to the construction of the 11 Tails container. After all, judging by the research results, dragons were indeed very promising creatures, with excellent data in all aspects. It was said that their scales were comparable to those of the White Snake Sage, which protected against various ninjutsu. You have to know that the White Snake Sage has been nurturing these scales for 1,000 years. This dragon, however, is an incomplete dragon. At best, it can only be considered a Gyao that failed to transform. Gyao is already so formidable, so a dragon is likely even more astonishing. That's why Hyūga Teru spared no effort in supporting Orochimaru's research. With Hyūga Teru's help, Orochimaru's research progressed rapidly. And the Akatsuki's collection of tailed beasts also accelerated. Half a year passed. In the vast forest, an orange-haired man, dressed in a black robe with red clouds, floated high in the air, overlooking a large fox dozing in the vast open space. This was the other half of the 9 tails that Minato had sealed away. When Chang'e resurrected Minato, he had thrown this half outside to roam free. During these days when no one was picking on it, it had been living it up for quite a while. It even slept with its belly exposed, and hadn't woken up even when pain arrived. What an astonishing amount of chakra! But it will cease to exist after today, become the foundation of a great peace, Chibaku Tensei. Without even saying hello to the 9 tails, Pain immediately swung a black ball into the sky. Immediately, a massive suction erupted from the ball, causing the ground to crack where the 9 tails had slept. The 9 tails, previously at peace, suddenly widened its eyes. Who dares to interrupt my nap? Are you tired of living? The 9 tails suddenly stood up, its body arched high, its fur bristling, as if ready to attack at any moment. With a moment's focus, it immediately spotted Pain flying in the air. However, it had already been sucked up, and it was too late to react. Human, you shouldn't have disturbed my rest, even at the risk of being sucked into the sky. The 9 tails glared at Pain. Hearing the 9 tails' furious rebuke, Pain remained calm and unfazed. Your capture is the will of God, and your destiny. It is your honor to contribute your strength to peace. Hearing Pain's words, Kyuubi was furious, sneering. What's with all the talk of gods? With your level of power, you're nowhere near that. Once I break free, I'll tear you apart. Boom, boom, boom. One boulder after another smashed into the already formed stone sphere, creating a resounding crash. However, when Kyuubi made contact with the sphere, he ducked, stomped his feet hard on the surface, and launched himself toward the ground like a cannonball. Seeing this, Pain was stunned. This beast possesses such power. It truly deserves to be the 9-tailed beast, the most powerful of the 9-tailed beasts. Even the Chibaku Tensei can't do anything to it, but a beast is still a beast. How can it possibly stand against a god? Shinra Tensei. Pain raised his hand to the sky. The void suddenly trembled violently, and the air pressed towards him at a speed visible to the naked eye and on a massive scale. Seeing this, the 9-tailed beast's pupils shrank, and he gritted his teeth in hatred. Don't look down on me, you bug-tailed beast ball. A sphere filled with terrifying energy suddenly condensed before the 9-tailed beast's mouth. With a loud bang, the tailed beast ball shot out, meeting the overwhelming repulsive force. Boom! A huge flame exploded in the air, as vast and boundless as if covering the sky and the sun, instantly shattering the repulsive force. The flame spread like a sea, continuously invading downwards. Watching this, Pine's expression was complex, his brow furrowed. This beast is so powerful. I miscalculated. It looks like we're in for a tough fight. Damn human, do you see how terrifying I am? Aren't you quite capable? Try to capture me again. The 9-tailed fox leaped from the flames, looking down at Pine with a haughty air. This sudden reversal of circumstances made Pine's expression even uglier. Hell, just 2 encounters don't prove anything. Don't think you're guaranteed victory." As Pine spoke, the other 5 rushed to his side. One of the girls performed a summoning technique, and several gigantic, grotesque creatures appeared, charging menacingly at the 9-tailed fox. The mechanical-looking Shirato immediately raised his hands. Supernatural missiles. Shirato's hands shot out, blasting towards the 9-tailed fox like missiles. Suddenly, attacks of all kinds descended upon the 9-tailed fox from all directions. But the 9-tailed fox didn't seem to care. It suddenly swung its tail and stretched it out. All the attacks coming from all directions were instantly blown away. Seeing this scene, Pain was completely stunned. This guy is so powerful. It seems that catching it today will be very difficult. Chapter 187, Capturing the 9-tailed fox successfully. So that's how it is, foolish human. You can't unleash the full power of those eyes. It's even safe to say they're not meant for you. The 9-tailed fox stared at Pine, and when he saw his eyes, he suddenly burst into laughter. Pine felt a little baffled by the 9-tailed fox's sudden mockery, but he subconsciously touched his eyes. "What nonsense are you talking about, you beast? I've had those eyes since I was born. How can they be meant for me? If they don't suit me, how can they suit you?" The 9-tailed fox grinned. "It doesn't suit me either, but I've seen eyes like this before. You've used them for so long, you should know their origins, right? This is the eye of the Six-Path Sage, but it can't possibly appear on a member of your Uzumaki clan. Even if you had chakra to control it, you couldn't unleash its full power. Your Rinnegan's power is even a little too weak. It's not even half as powerful as mine." Isn't that ridiculous? Pain was completely bewildered. He couldn't understand what the 9-tails was talking about and immediately flew into a rage. "Don't get so cocky, you beast. Do you think this is all I can do? Take that move, Super Shinra Tensei." Boom. A powerful repulsive force suddenly erupted, pressing down on the 9-tails like a tidal wave. However, the 9-tails' face remained scornful. "Fool, it's worse than the Chibaku Tensei just now. What's the point of using it?" The 9-tails extended all 9 tails and suddenly slammed them down on the ground, stirring up a cloud of dust and a devastating shockwave. Instantly, the repulsive force and the shockwave collided in a terrifying collision. Dust flew everywhere, obscuring the battlefield between 9-tails and Pain. But then, a sharp cry streaked through the sky, and a strange giant bird, like an arrow, darted into the dust cloud surrounding 9-tails. Bang! Before the bird could even approach 9-tails, it was suddenly blown away. The next second, 2 terrifying beastly roars erupted from the dust cloud. From 2 different directions, 2 enormous beasts attacked 9-tails. But after 2 more violent thrashing sounds, both beasts were torn to pieces and sent flying. "Foolish human, is that all you can do? Are there more?" 9-tails bared its fangs and claws, its tail waving wildly, splitting the dust cloud. Soon, Pain was clearly standing before it. Seeing that Pain didn't make any other move, 9-tails couldn't help but sneer. "Don't you have any other tricks? If not, then I will tear you apart." However, Pain remained unfazed and snorted coldly. "You'd better take a look around you." A vast mass of talismans suddenly enveloped Kyuubi, enveloping it the moment Pine finished speaking. Kyuubi squinted for a moment, then suddenly looked on with disdain. "A mere exploding talisman, no matter how many there are, they can't hurt me. Is that your plan? You foolish fool, you're so naive to think you can hurt me with that," Pine scoffed. "If you're so confident, why not take some of these? There are billions of them here, far more than you see." Pine looked up at the purple-haired woman who was continuously scattering them. After a slight nod, the purple-haired woman's eyes suddenly grew fierce. "Billions? How could there be so many?" By the time Kyuubi's mind had become alert, it was too late to flee. The surrounding exploding talismans suddenly swarmed over it, enveloping it. Boom boom boom. Explosions echoed incessantly. Kyuubi was engulfed in blazing flames. Yet, its immense size and immense strength ultimately enabled it to leap free from the siege of detonating tags. But to its dismay, no sooner had it leaped than a multitude of detonating tags, as if possessing eyes, instantly attached themselves to every part of its body. Boom boom boom. Another series of explosions followed, and the 9-tails, leaping a second time from the blazing flames, had its fur ripped and shattered, leaving a vast expanse of black. But before it could recover, a swarm of detonating tags blasted its body close. After several explosions, it finally located the culprit, a purple-haired woman soaring high in the sky. But just as it was about to blast her to pieces with its tailed beast ball, Pain's Shinra Tensei sent it tumbling and tumbling. The barrage of detonating tags and Pain's harassment irritated it. But the casters were all high in the air, leaving it unable to soar and engage. Suffering this loss for so long, the exhausted Nine Tails was finally completely engulfed by the Chibaku Tensei. I didn't expect the Nine Tails to be so powerful. Would that make the 10 Tails difficult to control? Konan, a white kite on her head, murmured as she flew beside Pine. Pine was silent for a moment before speaking. Powerful doesn't mean difficult to control. That Madara guy should have a way, but even as he said this, he lacked confidence. Madara's appearance was so strange. And, just now, the Nine Tails claimed his eyes weren't his. If not his, whose could they be? Although he didn't want to believe it, he inexplicably felt a strange sense of alienation about those eyes. It was just a subtle feeling at first, but the Nine Tails' words intensified it. After all, the Nine Tails wasn't human, it wouldn't make him lie, and neither would a tailed beast be so cunning. The question then became utterly terrifying. If his eyes weren't his own, whose were they? Since Madara was there to guide him, would he know the origins of his eyes? So, Madara seemed like someone he needed to be wary of. At this thought, a gloom fell over Pine's face. Nagato, is something bothering you? You seem a little different right now, Konan suddenly asked, causing Pine to pause in midair. No, but I'll have to be wary of Madara next time. His appearance is a bit bizarre, Konan nodded. That Madara guy is definitely a bit eccentric. He always plays dumb. Who knows if he's actually pretending to be Madara? He's really hard to figure out, and I don't know how dark his heart is, Pine agreed. He's certainly hard to figure out, but he's not very powerful. He should still be under control. Don't worry too much, you should be the one who shouldn't worry too much, right? Konan muttered, then increased her flight speed. Despite this, Konan felt inexplicably worried, a sense that something was about to happen. The two of them delivered the Nine Tails to the organization's gathering place and began sealing it into the Outer Path Demon statue. However, since the 8 Tails hadn't been captured yet, they had to wait a long time. Since Sasori's disappearance, Akatsuki has added Hiden, Delita, and Kisame. Adding to the original Orochimaru, Kakuzu, and Konan, there are 6 in total. However, they're still a bit short on manpower to seal the 9 Tails. Especially with Kisame and Delita out capturing the 8 Tails, the already stretched manpower is even more limited. Chapter 188, Civil War in Akatsuki. Really? The boss has already caught the 9 Tails, but that fishmonger Kisame hasn't finished catching the 8 Tails yet. It must be because he has no faith, the silver-haired man in a down jacket said irritably, holding a toothpick in his mouth. Kakuzu, who had been squinting beside him, opened his eyes slightly. It's only been a short while. If you can't wait any longer, just ask the leader for instructions and go out. Don't be bothering us with your whining. Wow, come on, Kakuzu, we're in the same group after all, why are you so heartless? I'm just a little bored, Hiden continued to rant. Kakuzu's temper immediately soured, and a black line suddenly rose into the air with one hand, waving everywhere. If you're bored, you can talk to my grudges. I think they'd be very happy to hear that. Hiden shrank back and shut up. Although he was immortal, that didn't mean he had lost his human touch. He could still feel pain and other things. But the pain Kakuzu inflicted was no ordinary pain. The earth blade had burrowed into his body, moving about wildly. The swelling, the pain piercing his forehead, was unbearable, and he truly didn't want to experience any more. Zizzle. At that moment, a sound like a radio began to blare. Suddenly, from nowhere, 2 figures appeared. Ah, it's finally over. That Delita bread is quite capable. He helped blow up quite a few people. Kisame-senpai is also quite impressive. He actually took down the 8 Tails single-handedly. However, Hiden immediately scoffed. Really? You're back, and you're praising each other? You were so slow, and you still have the nerve to claim credit? This infuriated Delita. Hey, you dead man, how can you talk like that? The 8 Tails is no match for the 2 Tails. If you come here, you'll probably be blown to pieces. Do you understand? How can you, a dead man, survive after being blown to pieces? Hiden couldn't stand it. What did you mean by shattering the earth? Alright. Now is not the time for you two to argue. Pain immediately interrupted the two, his gaze fixed on Kisame. Kisame, have you confirmed you've caught the 8 Tails? Kisame nodded. We've caught it. We're speeding back. With the speed of Deidara, we should be back in 2 days. Very good, then you can continue on your journey. 2 days passed after the meeting. Kisame and Itara had indeed returned. The group spent several days sealing the 8 tails and the 9 tails. Both tailed beasts were quite powerful, and it took everyone 6 days to complete the sealing. But suddenly, Pain extended a hand to Obito below. 10,000 things, buzz! The space suddenly shook violently, and Obito instantly flew towards Pain. But without a cry of surprise, his distinct black and white eyes suddenly turned scarlet. Kamui, Obito continued to soar through the air, but as he neared Pain's grasp, a black rod suddenly emerged from his sleeve. In an instant, Obito passed through Pain unhindered, then thrust the rod into his body. With a swish, the rod suddenly expanded, piercing Pain's entire body. After completing the strike, Obito's entire body began to twist. This scene truly stunned the others. What the hell is going on? Why did the leader suddenly attack Ifei? Ifei's got something wrong too. The rod pierced his body, and it suddenly sprouted more thorns. It hurts just thinking about it. What the hell is going on? We've finally collected all 9-tailed beasts. And we're only one step away from achieving our organization's goal, and now civil unrest is breaking out. The others had different theories. Orochimaru, looking amused, licked his lips and said nothing. Kakuzu's deep green eyes darkened, as if hiding something. At the moment when Pain was destroyed and Obito disappeared, Konan immediately turned into white paper and disappeared. Boom boom boom. A huge explosion broke out in a forest. After a large amount of flames bombarded, a skinny red-haired man continued to absorb the flames. Then he appeared in front of Obito in full. I really didn't expect that you would suddenly attack me. Aren't you worried that you can't control the 10 tails? Obito folded his arms and stared at Nagato. Nagato looked back at Obito with a bad look. Is it possible to control it with the main Gekio as you said? How can I let you control it? I have the Sage's Eye. How can I be inferior to your main Gekio? I can't control the 10 tails. Obito suddenly laughed and spread his hands. I didn't say you couldn't control it, it's just that you didn't know how to unleash the Rinnegan's true power, just like you don't know how to unleash its true power. Haha, of course, you don't know either. The Rinnegan doesn't actually fit your body at all, which is what's preventing you from unleashing its power. Nagato's mind was momentarily dazed, but he immediately became furious. What a joke. The Rinnegan doesn't fit my body, so how could it fit yours? If you thought it would be useful, why didn't you take it away earlier? Uchiha Madara was a powerful figure who existed during the Warring States period. Since he knew how to unleash the Rinnegan's full power and had already found me, why didn't he take my eye away? Or are you not Uchiha Madara at all? You're just an imposter who claimed to be Uchiha Madara and later learned some secrets about the Rinnegan through hearsay. Obito was slightly stunned, but then laughed. I didn't expect you to be able to detect this much. Actually, your guess is correct. I'm not Uchiha Madara, but guessing that's pointless, because your eyes will be mine in a second. Nagato's surroundings suddenly became alert, then he fixed his gaze on Obito. You're trying to unsettle me, surprise me? What a clumsy trick, but unfortunately, I've seen through it all. Oh, Obito said, his voice somewhat playful. Then can you discover more? Honestly, even though your eyes aren't mine, they're just as good as mine. That's because, Zetsu, you can proceed. The moment Obito gave the order, a man, half black and half white, emerged from the pitcher plant's shell. He quickly formed hand seals with his hands. Nagato's previously wary gaze gave way to astonishment. How? How is it possible? These eyes actually contain a barrier. Nagato froze, his face darkening. And then, in the blink of an eye, Obito was in front of him. Of course there are restrictions. Otherwise, how can we control your ever-increasing confidence? If you'd been obedient and followed the plan, we might have let you go, but now, to prevent any mishaps, we can only take your eyes back. Chapter 189 Obito vs Konan. Nagato looked extremely anxious and immediately shouted angrily. Don't even think about it, you bastard. I won't let you succeed. A tremendous amount of energy erupted from Nagato's body. Like a flame, it converged towards his eyes. However, Obito showed no sense of urgency. He glanced at Zetsu on the ground. Zetsu understood and immediately tightened his control. You don't even think about it. In a matter of seconds, Nagato was reduced to a bloody mess. His hair turned pale in an instant, but his eyes remained intact. Nagato was finally dying, and all his efforts to destroy his eyes had been in vain. Tisk tisk, I thought you were so formidable, yet you're defeated. Come to think of it, your life has been truly pathetic. You've spent your whole life nurturing these eyes, collecting the tailed beasts I need, you resisted, and ended up like this, yet you still couldn't escape my plundering of the fruits of victory. If it were you, I'd rather just die. Living is a shame, Obito said, and with his hand, he easily snatched Nagato's Rinnegan from his body. Nagato's teeth clattered, but he couldn't stop the hollowness in his eye sockets. Tears of blood streamed from his eyes, but he could do nothing. How boring. With a sage's eyes, you're nothing more than a controlled ent. Think about it, your fate was also arbitrarily controlled back then. It's not much different from your current situation, us, Nagato's voice rasped, a ferocious expression on his face. When you approached us and were rejected by us, did you try to sabotage us? Obito smiled and nodded. I didn't expect you to have some sense, but it's a little too late to realize it now, isn't it? What else do you have left now except a decayed body? Can you still fight me with this body? Nagato was now soaking in a vessel resembling a wooden barrel, his face extremely grim, and his whole body trembling with anger. After hearing what Obito said, he immediately formed hand seals with both hands. However, a ray of black light quickly approached, and with a loud puff, Nagato's neck was pierced. His hand, which was only halfway through the hand seal, snapped and fell limply. Seeing Nagato's easy death, Obito, who had placed the Rinnegan in the glass tube, shook his head. Without the Rinnegan, you're such a weakling. Your resistance hasn't even made a dent. Dying sooner would bring you relief. Shut up, you bastard. I didn't realize it wasn't just Nagato, but you were also involved in Yohiko's death. A cold, delicate cry suddenly rang out, and Nagato, enveloped in countless white paper, flew to Konan's side. Meanwhile, Obito's position was surrounded by a dense cloud of explosive talismans. Despite this precarious situation, Obito remained calm, gazing up at Konan in the sky. You've been such a burden, but you've grown quite a bit. But thinking you could defeat me like this is a bit naive, isn't it? Don't you know I can use space ninjutsu? You've just witnessed everything, so you should know about its existence. Why are you still trying to stop me with explosive talismans? Konan glared down at Obito coldly, her voice vicious. We'll know if I can defeat you after we try. Spatial abilities can't be used continuously. Even if you try to escape, the explosions from the detonating tags should be enough to stop you for a while. Oh? Really? Why didn't I know that? You're just guessing about an opponent whose abilities are unknown. Obito couldn't help but chuckle. If you were that naive, I'd easily kill you. But I never intended to let you go. Even if you didn't come looking for me, I would have found you and completely eliminated you. The moment Obito's cold voice rang out, space distorted. Seeing this, Konan immediately sneered. Hell, you better kill me, or I've stockpiled hundreds of billions of detonating tags, and I'll completely blast the 10 tails you're planning to create. Boom boom boom. The detonating tags exploded continuously, transforming Obito's location into a sea of fire. After a moment of spatial distortion, Obito reappeared below Konan. But then, another Obito appeared from another location. The 4 Obito cage clones formed a square formation, their hands moving rapidly. Uchiha flame formation, a crimson barrier suddenly erupted, enveloping Konan, unable to escape. But she showed no sign of panic. From her sleeves, an endless supply of explosive tags suddenly emerged, surging downward. A continuous roar echoed, and the Uchiha flame formation was completely filled with flames. Finally, unable to withstand the explosion, it shattered in a terrifying, blazing blaze. Seeing the flame formation broken, Obito was a little surprised, but he didn't take it too seriously. He was already invincible, so defeating Konan would be easy. Moreover, almost immediately during their initial encounter, he had transplanted the Rinnegan into the missing eye. Feeling the immense power hidden within the Rinnegan, he couldn't help but feel overjoyed, and his heart brightened. He immediately raised his hand towards Konan, who was in the air. Universal suction, a massive suction force suddenly erupted from Konan's location, catching her off guard and instantly sucked into the terrifying turbulence. But in a flash, Konan shattered into countless pieces of white paper, freeing herself from gravity's constraints. After solidifying into human form again, her eyes grew even colder. Damn it, that's Nagato's eye, Nagato's ability. Obito shrugged. His ability, his eyes, so what? But I have to correct you. His eyes never belonged to him. They were mine. Now I'm just returning them to their rightful owner. Furious, Konan waved her slender hand, transforming the sky full of detonating tags into a long dragon, blasting them towards Obito. However, Obito grabbed Nagato in the air. Universal suction, no. Konan noticed this immediately and spun around to stop Obito from sucking Nagato away. In a panic, she transformed herself into countless swiftly flying pieces of paper. Upon landing on Nagato, she quickly transformed into a pair of paper wings. With considerable effort, Nagato finally managed to push back into the air, but she herself was constantly being drawn back to the ground by the gravitational pull. Konan still considered turning into shredded paper, escaping gravity's pull. But suddenly, a barrage of rockets inexplicably launched towards her. Boom, boom, boom. Thunderous explosions echoed in succession, completely severing Konan's flight path and even forcing her back to her original form. Her body plummeted downward, and she was about to be captured by Obito. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190 Uchiha's Fatal Temptation. Watching the ground approaching, the enemy she hated so deeply, drawing ever closer, Konan's eyes instantly turned red. She continuously pulled scrolls from her sleeves and rapidly unleashed her summoning technique. Hyūga. More and more detonating tags emanated from the scrolls, trembling in the wind with a chaotic, dense trembling sound. But Obito ignored Konan's actions, seemingly unconcerned. After all, at this rate, the number of detonating tags wasn't huge, not even 100 billion. Even if they reached the ground, they would only be tens of millions, far from enough to kill Obito. After all, she hadn't set up an ambush, and she couldn't fully control them. If they fell to the ground, they would all detonate simultaneously. Whether or not they could kill Obito depended on luck. But it looked like they were completely indestructible. Obito didn't even bother to stop her, nor did he attempt to dodge. He simply watched her maneuver, completely unfazed. This infuriated Konan, yet she felt helpless, a sense of indescribable sadness welling up within her. Even at the end of her life, she hadn't been able to avenge Nagato and Yahiko. Even with her final resort, she couldn't do anything to harm her enemies. It was as if her life had been defined as a mere vase. But even if it proved impossible to harm them, she would ignite the final flame of her life. Even with the glare of her light, she would pierce their eyes. Even with the tremors of her explosion, she would jar their ears. As her resolve grew stronger, the detonating tags gathered around Konan's body, drawing ever closer to Obito. Boom! A deafening explosion erupted, and flames surged from Obito's position, obscuring his presence. But soon, a figure emerged from the flames. Unharmed, and seemingly unhurt. But as she looked up at the sky, she was stunned. How is it possible? After Konan died, shouldn't Nagato's body have fallen to the ground? There was no sign of Nagato's body in the air. No matter how he looked around, he couldn't find any trace of him. After questioning Zetsu, who had been observing the battle, he only learned that Nagato's body had suddenly vanished. What could have happened? Even Zetsu couldn't explain it. Obito was stunned, a chill running down his spine. Alone for a while, he paused at the spot where Konan and Nagato had been killed, finally deciding not to delve into it further. His gaze regained its sharpness, and he quickly rushed towards the gathering point of the other Akatsuki members. You let me go quickly. I can't let him get away. If Obito were still there, he would have been terrified. Konan's voice suddenly echoed from the void. However, as Konan twisted restlessly, the light distorted. Not only herself, but also Hyūga Teru, who was clinging to her from behind, was exposed to the air. However, with Obito gone, even Zetsu was no longer monitoring the area, and the two of them were exposed. But Zyunin was restless, trying to break free from his embrace. Of course, a man and a woman, two strangers, so close together, it was perfectly normal for a woman to feel repulsive. Furthermore, Zyunin harbored a deep grudge and had no time to dwell on such a matter. But Hyūga Teru wasn't so quick-tempered. I just rescued you, and now you're trying to die again? You're really wasting all the energy I put into saving you, aren't you? Zyunin finally relented, gazing at Hyūga Teru. I admit I should thank you for saving me. But there are things I must do. I can't let the man who murdered my friend continue to walk free, Hyūga Teru chuckled. You can't even kill him, so how can you say that? I think you're just going to die. Did you know he can use his special abilities to dodge any attack for 5 minutes? Xiaonin's beautiful pupils suddenly shrank. What you said, is it true? How did you know his special ability only lasts 5 minutes? And, how did you save me just now? Was that also a special ability? Hyūga Teru said with a smile. What do you plan to do now that you know all this? I sense that with your power, even if you knew all the information, you wouldn't be able to harm him at all. And do you think your previous threats would have exposed him? Someone who, even feigning madness and stupidity, was willing to remain lowly and conceal his identity, to your trap. Reflecting on Obito's past, he was a complete scoundrel and a thief. Risking someone like him without absolute necessity was clearly wishful thinking. Konan, no fool, quickly realized this. But she still felt a little uneasy, and clenched her fists. How would we know if we don't try? What if he really reveals a flaw? Keep watching him from the shadows, there's always a chance, Hyūga Teru said with a chuckle. It sounds like a strong possibility, but in reality, it's completely improbable. You have no idea what you're dealing with, just like you don't know what kind of being I am. If you want him dead, there's actually a very simple way. Konan was very surprised, frowning and staring at Hyūga. What way? Are you still willing to help me accomplish this? Hyūga nodded, stroking her purple hair with a hand. Of course, but you have to pay a price. Otherwise, why would I agree to kill him? You can try again and assassinate him. Konan couldn't help but be very suspicious. You were the one who stopped me from assassinating him, and now you're encouraging me to do it. What exactly do you mean? What's the price you're asking for me to kill him? Konan had already begun to understand, but she didn't want to confirm such a thing. Hyūga spoke bluntly. As we all know, no one in this world treats others well without a reason. If there's anyone who can be kind to someone, it would be family. Obviously, you want me to help you kill him, so then you'll have to become my closest person, but I'll let you in on this. If you agree, even if it's Uchiha and Nagato, I can help you resurrect them. Think about it. Hyūga Teru's smile was very warm. After saying this, Konan was completely stunned. Her cheeks flushed, and her brow furrowed as if she was in a complex state of contemplation. She had considered such a thing before, but after Uchiha's death, she had completely given up. She hadn't expected such a strange man to suddenly appear and make such a request upon meeting him. It was incredibly strange, yet also incredibly tempting. She admitted that she was half tempted to agree. Killing Obito was secondary, resurrecting Uchiha and Nagato was a fatal temptation for her. But, how would she face them in the future? Chapter 191 Xiaonin's Decision. As for how to face Nagato and Uchiha, it wasn't particularly difficult. Nagato was easy, but meeting Uchiha would be awkward. After all, they had been in love before. The thought of this filled Konan with mixed emotions. But compared to her previous determination to kill Obito, even if it meant death, this choice seemed easier. And the outcome would be better. I just didn't know, if it was true, what if he was lying to her? After all, Hyūga Teru was a bit mysterious. Just as Konan was struggling, Hyūga Teru pulled out a kunai and handed it to her. If you can't make a decision and want to continue the assassination, then go ahead. But before you die, it'd be best to activate this kunai to avoid a complete death. Of course, if you've figured it out, you can use it to let me know. It's okay if you can't decide now, you can take your time to think it over, Hyūga Teru said, and then he waited quietly for a moment. Konan nodded slightly, apparently wanting to consider it. After all, this was a lifelong event, and Konan didn't want to make a decision so quickly. He probably hated Obito so much that he was mad and desperate, and was desperate to find a cure. Obviously, Konan wasn't at that level right now. So after this exchange, Hyūga Teru left. Many days passed. Just as Hyūga Teru had finished discussing business with Tsunade, a chakra reaction suddenly came from afar. At this time, there were usually no one else looking for him except a few people from the Akatsuki organization. Hyūga Teru put on his clothes and slowly disappeared under Tsunade's reluctant gaze. The place he arrived at was a jungle. It was very quiet everywhere. But there were many powerful chakra reactions approaching. The one who used the Flying Thunder God kunai to notify Hyūga Teru was Konan, whom he hadn't seen for many days. Her clothes were torn in many holes and slightly charred, as if she had been burned. She was a little depressed, and her once snow-white face was covered with a layer of black ash, looking very miserable. But when she saw Hyūga Teru, it was as if she had seen a lifeline. She immediately moved her lips and said, I promise you, that thing. And please help me deal with Madara. As long as you can take care of him, I won't regret it." Konan made the decision with great reluctance, the resentment in her eyes lingering. It seemed as if her fight with Obito had infuriated her even more. Perhaps the more she fought, the more frustrated she felt, the less confident she felt. But Obito was clearly not idle, and he must have said a lot of humiliating and infuriating things to Konan. With this in mind, Hyūga Teru pulled Konan up and readily agreed. "Okay, but that guy still has some use for me. Killing him will take some time. But first, I can show you his frustration," Hyūga Teru said, his demeanor changing dramatically. Konan, immediately confused, asked hurriedly. "Why are you acting like this? Why are you waiting to kill him? Didn't you say you'd help me kill him if you agreed, or do you not have the ability to kill him at all, and are just trying to trick me into taking over his body?" Hyūga Teru scoffed. "You're making me sound so vulgar. Actually, I think the world needs a villain, so I left him here. Don't your former companions all hope for world peace? Don't you think that Masked Guy is a good motivator, if he's so powerful that all forces have to unite to deal with him, making everyone feel completely hopeless? Then everyone should be able to put aside their prejudices and sincerely cooperate to fight him, right?" Hyūga Teru now controls the top leaders of the major villages, but that's just the top leaders. If he simply orders the villages to unite, the lower-level ninja will still disobey. Conflicts might erupt, leading to conflict. That's not what he wants. So, he wants Obito to become the ultimate villain, similar to the Fourth World War. He hopes he can help foster trust and understanding between people. But Konan frowned, unable to fully understand this, and immediately asked in confusion. "I still don't understand why you're doing this. Is this your way to promote peace? How can you be so sure it will succeed?" Hyūga Teru smiled and put his arm around her waist. "Because I possess overwhelming power, my chances of success are greater than anyone else's. Even if I allow him to commit evil, I can easily destroy him." As he spoke, Hyūga Teru also took to the air, carrying Konan. Obito, who was currently destroying Konan's paper clones, quickly approached like a wolf smelling meat, manipulating the new 6 paths of pain. But upon seeing Hyūga Teru, he felt a strange sense of dread. Although he didn't recognize his appearance, his flying abilities and undeniable aura of strength felt familiar. "Hey, Obito, remember me? I'm your father." Hearing the familiar voice, Obito froze. But his eyes, hidden beneath the mask, quickly ignited with a blazing fire. "Asshole, do you think I'm still the same person I used to be? With these eyes, I'm no longer afraid of you." Furious, Obito ripped off his mask, revealing a hermaphroditic face. The purple Rinnegan was so conspicuous that upon seeing it, Konan clenched her fists and stared up at Hyūga Teru. "So you've known each other for a while?" Hyūga Teru didn't deny it, smiling. "Of course I do. I even called him dad for a while and beat him up so hard he almost pissed himself." Konan paused for a moment, then shifted her gaze to Obito. Her eyes were filled with curiosity and a hint of anticipation. This jerk, who had been so arrogant before, constantly mocking her. How had he called someone daddy and gotten beaten so hard he pissed himself? Sudden reminder of his past embarrassment, and in front of Konan, who he so disdained, made Obito feel humiliated and instantly flew into rage. "Asshole, you're courting death." Key arm rocket, Shirato suddenly crouched down and raised his arm. With a bang, Shirato's fist flew out with incredible speed and power. It was about to strike Hyūga Teru, but his expression remained unchanged. He simply raised one hand slowly. Super Shinra Tensei, the power of the Rinnegan and the Samsara Eye erupted simultaneously. Like a wave descending from thin air, the rocket was swiftly crushed, unable to contain even a fraction of its force. A repulsive force sent a whistling roar through the air, pushing it back in the direction of its launch. Obito's pupils shrank. But Obito reacted quickly, raising his hand to repel it. Super Shinra Tensei, the repulsive force erupted with extraordinary force, stirring up a cloud of dust from the ground and charging towards Hyūga Teru's repulsive force. However, after unleashing the repulsive force, Obito's ferocious expression froze completely. Because the scale alone could immediately distinguish them. The two were highly aware of each other. Chapter 192 Tragedy of Obito. Boom. Obito's repulsive force, upon contact, was crushed by Hyūga Teru's. Then, an overwhelming weight pressed down on Obito. Kamui, Obito's main Gekio glowed red, and his body entered a hollow state. But Hyūga Teru wouldn't let him succeed, instantly activating his Kamui technique. And just like that, Obito failed to achieve his hollow state. He was crushed to the ground by the crushing repulsive force. Bang! Obito was pinned to the ground, several meters deep. His arms and legs were twisted to varying degrees, and the strange twists and turns were stained with blood, a color that continued to deepen. A miserable cry instantly echoed through the forest. Obito, previously so arrogant, now wailed in agony, and Konan covered her mouth in surprise. Is his name Obito? How could you knock him down so easily, and leave him so badly injured? Hyūga Teru squeezed Konan's hips, making her blush. His name is Obito, and the fact that I easily knocked him down was, of course, due to his strength. Don't you think my moves are very similar to his? The difference is, his power is much less. Konan was still confused, even forgetting she was being teased, staring into Hyūga Teru's eyes. Do you have the Rinnegan too? He's using the transformation jutsu right now. I can't seem to tell. But what about his space ninjutsu? Did you break it too? Hyūga Teru said with ease. Of course it's just a special ability. If he has it, so can I. Now you should believe that killing him would be a piece of cake for me, right? Konan nodded slightly, but still frowned. If it was so easy, why didn't you kill him right away? Didn't I tell you, there's some use in keeping him around for now? Konan pressed on. But didn't you also say, you could resurrect people? Wouldn't it be easy to just kill him and then resurrect him? That shouldn't be that difficult. Hyūga Teru's scalp tingled with shock. What did you mean by killing someone and then resurrecting them? Such demonic behavior, yet Konan could pull it off so easily. It was unbelievable. Of course it's not as simple as you think. What on earth do you think? That resurrection can be so simple. Although I have a long lifespan, resurrecting someone still reduces their lifespan. Lifespan, once reduced, it's hard to replenish. The compensation you gave me was too little. How could I possibly wantonly reduce my lifespan just for you? But what did he do to you that you're so angry? While I can't kill him, you can still teach him a lesson now. Konan finally realized. So, that request was compensation for resurrecting Nagato and Yahiko. Of course, she couldn't have known that resurrection came without a price. Hyūga Teru's skills had no side effects. But she couldn't have known all this. According to inertia, such a world-shaking event as resurrection naturally came with a huge price. Thinking of this, Konan lowered her head, a little embarrassed. It's nothing special, really. He just humiliated Pain and taunted me so many times, but I can't do anything about him. If you don't mind, I'd like to blow him up with an exploding talisman. Hearing Konan's words, Hyūga Teru was stunned. Ahem, I don't think an exploding talisman is such a horrible punishment. I can give you something worse, absolutely killing him. Konan blinked, puzzled. Is that true? Is there anything more unbearable than being burnt by a raging fire? If so, can I see it? Hyūga Teru nodded happily. Of course, God-level shadow clone technique. A large number of shadow clones appeared, descending to the ground. Working together, they instantly grabbed the Obito and quickly pulled down his pants. What are you doing? Konan immediately covered her eyes, asking in panic. Hyūga Teru smiled. Of course it's to punish him. It's okay if you don't want to see. But you can listen to the sounds. You know, this spot is a man's Achilles heel. Achilles heel, Konan muttered repeatedly, still shielding her eyes tightly. But at that moment, Hyūga Teru's shadow clones had already begun to move. They temporarily sealed Obito's chakra, then one by one, they made ejection gestures. Snap, snap, snap. The crisp sound of the popping sound immediately echoed through the jungle. Obito was unable to react for a moment, but when he did, he convulsed in pain, letting out a slaughtered pig's scream. It hurts, it hurts, Obito's screams continued, each wave louder than the last. Even Konan, who was covering her eyes, couldn't help but tremble all over, her expression tense. Hyūga Teru didn't look at this scene, but quietly observed Konan's beautiful face, which was cold yet radiant. In her previous life, such a beauty could only be admired from afar, never touched. Not only was she beautiful, but her figure was also very alluring. While not as impressive as Tsunade, Samurai, and me, they were still near the top. Could you please stop looking at me? We've known each other for a long time, and I still don't know who you are, Hyūga Teru said calmly. We can talk about this later. By the way, have you come down now? You looked quite mad just now. If you're still angry, I think it could last a while longer. Konan immediately shook her head. That's enough, but you must not let him go. Can I postpone what I promised you until after he's dead? If he doesn't die, I'll always feel like something's unresolved, and I'll be worried. Konan said this, looking at Hyūga Teru with a look of concern, as if afraid he might disagree. Hyūga Teru said nonchalantly, of course, no problem. If that's a good time for you, then we'll wait. After all, I delayed his death, so your request isn't excessive. Konan finally breathed a sigh of relief and expressed gratitude. Thank you for understanding, but I'm still a little uncomfortable. I've been so busy with revenge these past few years. I've never considered anything like this. That's why I'm feeling uneasy, Hyūga Teru said seriously, facing her. It's normal to feel uneasy about new things. You'll get used to it after a little adjustment. Just don't worry too much. Konan nodded obediently. I understand. You'd better stop. Otherwise, he'll die. If he dies, it'll be quite troublesome, right? Hyūga Teru nodded, and immediately gave a command to the shadow clones below. The shadow clones stopped their work and disappeared one by one, leaving only the last one. After threatening Obito, it finally vanished. Hyūga Teru then disappeared with Konan, leaving only the dying Obito in the place. Chapter 193 Obito's Rise and Fall. When Obito awoke, he was tightly wrapped in Uzumaki white setsu. Even so, every part of his body still ached. Especially the spot that had been blasted thousands of times, nearly numb. Sensing this, Obito's chest heaved violently, his eyes bloodshot. Damn it! How dare that bastard do that? Tears streamed down his face as he spoke. After all, he had never suffered such humiliation since childhood. If Rin saw him, she'd probably die of laughter. Damn it! Damn it! I'll kill you soon, Obito roared frantically at the deserted jungle. But soon, a half-black, half-white figure, wrapped in pitcher plants, emerged from the ground. I never thought that guy would come after you again. It's just a little strange. He let you go again. It just feels a little strange, Zetsu muttered to himself. This truly annoyed and irritated Obito, and he immediately confronted him coldly. What's so strange about that? He's just trying to trick me. If I had that kind of power, I'd be playing tricks on people, making them feel hopeless. Come to think of it, you were right here, couldn't you save me? Or maybe you just ran away with me, and you just stood there and watched. Do you want me dead too? Zetsu's mention of him being spared had also touched upon his pride. His existing resentment towards Zetsu finally erupted. Despite facing a gaze that threatened to tear him apart, Zetsu remained expressionless. If I'd come out sooner in that situation, I'd probably have been captured too. Maybe it was me hiding in the dark that made them wary. Don't overthink it. Since you've been lucky enough to escape with your life, prioritize figuring out how to fuse with the Ten Tails and become their Jinchuriki. Once you become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, that guy won't be your match. You'd better focus on the important things. Although Obito was still a little annoyed, he frowned in thought. Suddenly, he glanced at Zetsu. Speaking of which, aren't you great at gathering intelligence? How come we haven't found any information on that guy yet? That guy has the Rinnegan, such a big thing. How come you still don't have a clue? He opened the Rinnegan but didn't take the Ten Tails seriously at all. Don't you find it strange? If I can use the Ten Tails to become the strongest, why can't he? Is there some risk in becoming the Ten Tails Jinchuriki? He wants me to test it out first? Or is this all a scam? Obito's mind worked. He quickly thought of all the suspicious points. Zetsu was stunned for a moment, then said with a sullen face. There's so little information on that guy. No matter how hard I search for the Uchiha clan, I've come up empty-handed. Maybe he's not Konoha's Uchiha, but that's not important. The Ten Tails Jinchuriki will definitely make you very powerful. Even if you don't, you'll be stuck. That guy has such a close relationship with Konan. Are you sure you still have a chance of survival? If you don't become stronger, he'll probably kill you in no time. After Zetsu's reminder, Obito felt as if he had just woken up from a dream, a chill running down his spine. He began to suppress his inner rage. Alright, then I'll continue my efforts to become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. But you must investigate that guy more thoroughly, or I won't let you off. Zetsu quickly agreed. Then we'll spend the next few days investigating him. I'll mobilize as many other white Zetsu as possible. Just wait for the news. Zetsu slowly sank into the ground, a broad smile flashing out of Obito's sight. It was almost the next morning. The hidden cloud village naturally mobilized its entire population to confront the major ninja villages about Killer Bee's disappearance. This was naturally orchestrated by Hyūga Teru, primarily to unite the major ninja villages before Obito could launch a rebellion. This forced alliance, allowing them to put aside their differences in times of crisis and achieve a level of mutual trust and dependence. This was the original storyline, and a successful one. He naturally wanted to exploit Obito's surplus value to the utmost. Thus, a meeting of the 5 major cages was convened, once again in the Land of Iron. It must be said that these knights were truly cooperative. The leaders of the 5 major nations gathered, but with significant changes from the original story. Gaara and the 3 Temari sisters served as guards for Hagura. Madarumi was protected by Zabuza, Haku, Kimimaro, and others. The lineup was far more formidable than in the original story. However, thanks to Hyūga Teru's orchestration, the 9-tailed beasts had all been gathered by Akatsuki. Therefore, the alliance was formed quickly and with much greater ease. Sarutobi Hiruzen became the leader of the alliance. Just as everyone was about to return to prepare for the coalition's reunion, a white creature suddenly appeared in the center, a goofy grin on its face. I didn't expect you all to be here. You've formed an alliance. This saves us from having to chase you around. Your alliance is truly wonderful, but before White Zetsu could finish his joking smile, a sudden flash of white light severed his head. Mifune majestically sheathed his sword and bowed solemnly to the others. My apologies, everyone. I was responsible for guarding the meeting, but I still let the enemy in. I bear a heavy responsibility, Sarutobi Hiruzen reassured him. It's okay. If they were that easy to deal with, we wouldn't have captured the 9-tailed beasts. But you should have waited. Capturing them might have yielded a lot of information. At that moment, the void suddenly twisted. A masked man appeared, draped in a black robe with red clouds. Haha, there's actually no need to go to all that trouble. Even if I tell you all the information, you won't be able to stop our offensive. We are no longer someone you can deal with even if you unite. Even if Konoha uses all its strength, the same will still happen. Next, you will experience unparalleled pain. This will be a grand trial. Only those who survive can enjoy the rewards I bestow. Bang! A huge explosion suddenly resounded throughout the conference room. The Raikage, his body flashing with terrifying arcs of electricity, smashed the desk where Obito was standing with his eyes blazing with rage. You actually went right through? But you're really contemptuous of us. Who do you think you're facing? How dare you look down on us? Obito smiled and stared at AI. So what if I look down on you? Did your punch just now hurt me at all? If it couldn't hurt me, how can you deserve my respect? Chapter 194 The 5 Great Ninja Villages Unite. AI was furious. Even with his mindset altered, he couldn't contain his fury. Lightning shot up from his body, transforming him into a raging King Kong. But Obito remained unfazed, finding a new spot to sit with his legs crossed. If you want to fight, I'll give you time. But it won't do anything, and I'll be holding you up for quite a while. Well, do you want to try again? AI raised his fist, ready to smash Obito, but the 3rd Hokage stopped him. Raikage, give it a rest. Fighting now won't solve everything. Let's hear what he has to say. Listen to him. Aren't you getting senile, old man? AI's eyes widened, ready to strike down anyone who tried to stop him. The 3rd Hokage was helpless, but thankfully, the others, who weren't impulsive, intervened. AI calmed down considerably, but still let out a grumpy roar. What are you doing here? Are you here to provoke me? If so, you've achieved your goal, and you will be attacked by all 5 of us. Cage, Obito muttered, glancing at AI with disdain. I'm quite looking forward to the attack from the 5 of you. But I didn't come here today specifically to pick a fight with you. You still have some use, that is to gather your strongest forces possible and fight hard in this purgatory I've created, and I'm here today to declare the 4th Shinobi World War officially begun. With those words, the 5 Kage and the Mifune were stunned. AI was the first to recover, shouting furiously. What do you think war is? A game? You're just a child, aren't you? You still want to start a war? With those 9-tailed beasts, Obito continued to glare at him with disdain. Haha, a reckless man is a reckless man. You really don't know what you're dealing with. I'm no young man. My past dates back to before the founding of the ninja village. But even then, I was a rare and powerful being. The only one who could rival me is Hashirama Senju, Konoha's 1st Hokage. At this, Inoki's eyes suddenly widened, and he pointed a trembling finger at Obito. You, how could you? You can't be that person, this is impossible. This piqued the curiosity of the others, who wanted to know who Inoki was talking about. But before Inoki could reply, Obito stared at him and said, "It seems you already know, Inoki. I didn't expect you to remember me." Inoki snapped. "Impossible. That person is long dead. Even if he survived, he wouldn't be as young as you." Obito chuckled and folded his arms. "Nothing is impossible. I, Uchiha Madara, wouldn't deceive you juniors. Eternal life wasn't a difficult matter for me, at the peak of my powers. As for the decades of planning, it was all for the sake of achieving peace. I call it Project Moon Eye, a large-scale illusion that will trap everyone in an absolutely beautiful illusion." "What? Even if you weren't Uchiha Madara, you could call something like that peace?" I immediately retorted in anger. Inoki followed suit. "What's the point of a life like that?" The third Hokage nodded. "An illusion is still an illusion. No matter how beautiful it is, it's fake." Obito utterly scoffed at their views. "So, if that's the case, how can you achieve peace? After all these years, haven't we still been in constant conflict? But peace today isn't something you can easily achieve. It's precisely because of ungrateful people like you that I've set this trial. Only those who pass the trial will gain the opportunity to enter this beautiful fantasy world. Haha. Even if you beg me now, it won't change. Experience this hell on earth." With that, Obito's body shrank back. I immediately sensed that Obito was about to leave. He'd suddenly appeared, inexplicably defiant, and acted arrogantly. How could he tolerate such a violent temper? Seeing that a shred of Obito still remained, I raised his massive fist and smashed it in. With a loud bang, it punched through the wall and outward, but it didn't reach Obito at all. "Bastard, next time I'll smash you to pieces." The Raikage's roar echoed around the castle where the meeting was held. It was that raging roar that infected everyone. After the 5 great village cages returned to their villages, they immediately began frantically mobilizing their frontline forces and organizing a reunion of ninja troops. It took 2 days for everyone to finally gather. Even after the highly anticipated meeting, the grudges between the members were not immediately resolved. However, with capable individuals from each village, a well-organized mobilization and rigorous analysis and encouragement helped everyone temporarily put aside their grudges. But how easy would it be to resolve the long-standing rift? Suddenly, a resounding explosion erupted from the Hidden Rain village. A gigantic, strange tree, crowned with a single flower, suddenly rose from the ground. With astonishing speed, it soared to the heavens in the blink of an eye. Everyone was utterly stunned. Just as the sky dimmed, Obito suddenly appeared in midair, placing a hand on the sacred tree. Crackling. The sacred tree rapidly converged towards Obito's palm, and his body, as if possessed by some monster, darted wildly within. After absorbing the tree, the chaotic movement within his body intensified, as if it were about to burst. Obito's expression changed drastically, his features contorted with a hideous venom. "Sure enough, there's a trap, but if you think you can force me to surrender with this, you underestimate me." In this critical moment, Obito thought of Rin's death and Hyūga Teru's humiliation. He was overcome with grief and rage. With a roar, he forced himself to focus. Just as his body was about to be engulfed, the monster suddenly withdrew, revealing a completely new persona. Even his skin had turned a pure white, scales covering many parts of his body, horns sprouted from his head and back, and flames burned from his back. With a raised hand, a black tin staff condensed in his hand. Compared to his previous gloomy demeanor, he now possessed a more peaceful and inhumanly indifferent air. Pointing the staff toward the sky, a massive shadow was cast. "The trial is about to begin. Are you all from the 5 great ninja villages ready? If not, then be destroyed." Seeing Obito's shadow and hearing his words, the ninjas from the 5 great villages instantly felt uneasy. This is the enemy we're about to fight. He looks very formidable. I didn't expect the enemy we had to unite against was real. What kind of method is this? Just seeing the shadow gives me a fright. Chapter 195. The war begins. 1st Battalion, attack a mega cure from the northeast. 2nd Battalion, attack a mega cure from the southeast. Nearly 100,000 troops from the 5 great nations advance in an orderly, angled formation toward Kumagakure. They had been instructed beforehand, prioritize annihilating the most powerful, conserving all their strength for the most powerful enemy. It's undeniable that the ninjas from the major ninja villages, still unaware of Obito's true nature, felt this unprecedented alliance was a sure win. the combined might of the 5 great ninja villages would be unstoppable, let alone the tiny Omega Cure. Hyūga Teru didn't specifically warn them to be cautious, as too much advance warning would likely arouse suspicion. However, as they neared the land of rain, a swarm of white creatures and ashen-skinned figures appeared before everyone's eyes. This startled the allied forces. However, some shinobi, still skeptical, underestimated the various white Zetsu and impure world ninjas. Their deaths were a tragic example to everyone. Because of this, those behind them no longer dared to underestimate these strange beings. Countermeasures began to spread throughout the various teams. Especially in the face of the impure world reincarnation, sealing squads were quickly assembled to coordinate the operation. However, after the initial casualties were completely eliminated, the appearance of more impure world reincarnations quickly shocked everyone. Long-dead masters from the major ninja villages appeared on the battlefield, retaining some semblance of consciousness to fight the crowd. The sudden influx of so many powerful masters dealt a heavy blow to the coalition forces. However, with a coalition encompassing the 5 major ninja villages, they quickly shared the masters they faced, effectively and targetedly confronting the former masters. As the bloody battles raged between the various ninja villages, Hyūga Teru watched from afar. Orochimaru had invented the impure world reincarnation, and he hadn't objected. This was essential to putting pressure on the coalition forces and allowing them to align themselves in battle. Therefore, he didn't intervene. As time passed, the battle finally drew to a close. Just then, the sudden appearance of several powerful beings once again shocked the battlefields. Every battlefield was filled with fallen Kage from the major ninja villages, and for a moment, the battlefields fell silent. But inside the command room, a commotion erupted. The 5 Kage were enraged, each rolling up their sleeves to take the field. After a brief handover, the Kage from each ninja village headed to the battlefield, selecting their opponents based on their abilities. A breathtaking battle unfolded. However, with the assistance of the allied shinobi, the Kage from each village emerged victorious. Seeing the impure world reincarnations destroyed, Orochimaru, practically the only remaining member of Akatsuki, transformed into a multitude of white snakes and fled. Obito paid little attention to this situation. Instead, he appeared before everyone, unleashing an overwhelming pressure before even engaging them. Boom boom boom. The earth cracked, and countless ninja were instantly crushed to pulp. Screams echoed across the wilderness, filling the ninja with immense terror. Their legs trembled, afraid to engage Obito. Seeing this, Obito spoke coldly. If you can't even endure this little test, you can't achieve final peace. Don't think this is enough, for despair lies ahead. Obito formed a hand seal, his eyes ablaze with energy. The ground cracked again, but with a new twist, a vast expanse of vegetation sprouted from the ground. Just as rapidly as the sacred tree had grown before, it instantly buried countless people. Meanwhile, branches lashed out like whips at the surviving ninja. Caught off guard, many were ripped to pieces. Many more were entangled and sucked dry by the trees. No. No. I don't want to fight anymore, I surrender. How can we win? How can we win against such a being? The battlefield erupted in cries of despair. Initially limited to a handful, they gradually spread to the rest. In the final moments before their deaths, they all let out a wail of deep regret. Watching all this, Obito felt no pity, but rather a glow of excitement. It's wonderful. These guys, one by one, thought I was easy to deal with. Now they can only scream, without even the strength to resist. Strength is everything. Only with power can I make no one defy me. Where the hell is that guy? Why hasn't he shown up yet? Isn't he going to save these people? Obito spoke with growing excitement. His eyes darted around, as if searching for prey. Almost as he expected, ninjas from other directions rushed over. The Kage from the major ninja villages were especially the first to arrive and confront Obito. Although he didn't wait for Hyūga Teru, Obito was still quite excited. A battle was imminent. However, it wasn't just the 5 Kage fighting Obito, but the Raikage, Tsuchikage, and Hokage, allied with Fugaku, Shisu, Kakashi, Gai, and others, who would take on Obito. The lineup was formidable, but in the end, it was Obito's Kamui and the powerful Rinnegan that held him back. Kakashi, while quick to break through the Kamui, was emaciated after a few attempts. Obito, having entered 6th Paths mode, was beaten to pulp for 6 months, yet he recovered swiftly. Such remarkable resilience was truly astonishing. While Obito, The strongest of the ninja was being fought off by the others. The other ninjas were chopping down the sacred tree. However, the effect was minimal due to its rapid growth. The atmosphere on the battlefield once again fell into despair. Far away from the battlefield, a blond man and a red-haired woman stared intently at the battlefield, their fists clenched. Beside them, a bewildered yellow-haired boy gazed curiously into the distance, at the two of them. Suddenly, the air twisted, and Hyūga Teru appeared before them. "Okay, Minato, it's your turn, Kushina, to appear. Say goodbye to Naruto before you leave." Upon hearing Hyūga Teru's instructions, Minato paused for a moment, then his gaze shifted to Naruto. At that moment, not only he, but also Kushina, recalled the catastrophe that had occurred before. The catastrophe that had separated Naruto from his yin and yang. Life had been so fulfilling lately that she had forgotten such grief. Facing a greater danger now, they couldn't help but recall the bad memories of the past. However, they hadn't been idle in the past few years and had at least practiced diligently. But they could see the great terror on Obito's side, so they suddenly remembered the life and death separation in the past. The two couldn't help but feel sad, and said goodbye to Naruto affectionately. This made Hyūga Teru's scalp numb. By the way, even if Naruto doesn't show up, you will still need to borrow his chakra later. There's no need to be so sad. Chapter 196, Fierce Battle with Obito. I just suddenly remembered something bad. Speaking of something like this, with the survival of the entire world at stake, are you really not going to intervene? Minato was utterly surprised, confused by Hyūga Teru's intentions. Although they hadn't explicitly engaged in a duel, he sensed the strength of Hyūga Teru. Not to mention taking down that murderous disciple, at least they could reduce casualties. Hyūga Teru calmly shook his head. I think you, Kushina, and Naruto are enough. Obito has his limits, too. We've been fighting for so long, we've learned his tactics. If you two go, you should be able to break the stalemate immediately, especially you, Minato. You've already mastered Sage Mode, and if you've imbued your body with the Nine Tails Chakra, then using Flying Thunder God and fighting Obito won't be too difficult. If he took action, no one else would be able to, so even at the cost of his life, he had to resist the urge to strike Obito. Yet, to have reached such a conclusion before even engaging in battle truly baffled Minato. After all, Obito is now facing a siege from a group of powerful warriors, some of whom are powerful beings that can summon giant armored Crow Tengu. They can't deal with Obito, so what can he do if he goes? Minato doesn't have a clear understanding of his own strength at this moment. After all, after his resurrection, he rarely goes out on missions and has been practicing hard. Of course, the same is true for Kushina and Naruto. Naruto can now control the Nine Tails, which is 5 or 6 years earlier than in the original story. It is also the result of extremely hard work. Minato was stunned for a moment and scratched his head. I understand. We will go and help, Minato said, put his arm around Kushina's shoulders, and disappeared in the next second. A new battle started again, but with the appearance of Minato and Kushina, the battlefield seemed to have a new vitality. Who are these? Are these two? Are they new experts sent by headquarters? I don't know, but they look familiar. They must be quite powerful, judging from the speed of their sudden appearance. They're not much behind Raikage-sama, and they appear to be Konoha ninjas. Although the big boss belonged to Konoha, the strongest fighting force was also Konoha. Seeing Konoha send more ninjas, many people breathed a sigh of relief, and the dejected atmosphere immediately changed. Minato used his Flying Thunder God Kyune and dodged in front of Obito in a few strokes. Seeing Minato's appearance, almost everyone was shocked. Unlike the ordinary ninja who were confused, most of those who fought Obito had seen Minato before. The third Hokage, in particular, had witnessed Minato's death with his own eyes, and now it felt like he had seen a ghost. How is this possible? Wasn't Minato already? The third Hokage stopped talking mid-sentence. Suddenly, he thought, could someone from the battle command have deliberately arranged someone to impersonate Minato? After all, while others didn't know, he knew. Obito was Minato's disciple, so it shouldn't be hard to distract him. Obito frowned in disbelief, but after a moment's reflection, understanding dawned on him. You're impersonating Minato Namikaze, trying to distract me? If so, I'll be disappointed. Minato looked puzzled. He opened his mouth to respond, but seeing many people gasping for breath and collapsing on the ground, he immediately created numerous shadow clones. Each one clutched a scroll and rushed to the exhausted. Seeing this, Obito's disdain deepened. So they're just here to deliver something, probably just some Hyūga or something. And they even went out of their way to look like Minato Namikaze, trying to scare anyone. Come to think of it, they've already eaten the Hyūga. How can they even eat it now? Isn't that a waste of time? But before Obito could finish his sentence, Minato and his shadow clones demanded that the ninja, whose strength was already dwindling, create their own shadow clones. He then sealed the shadow clones within the scroll. This truly shocked Obito, not only because the method of departure resembled that of Flying Thunder God, but also because of its strange behavior. He was facing a group of people who were already exhausted, so why did he ask for shadow clones to seal and take away? Wasn't he afraid that they would die of exhaustion? After a moment of confusion, Obito immediately dismissed the strange thoughts in his mind and continued to fight with the others. There were not many people who could fight him now. Kakashi and Guy had already gone to rest. The rest were barely holding on. It was time to deal with him. Obito's eyes flashed coldly, and he immediately used the Amanuma spear in his hand to stab Fugaku and Shisu, who were fighting him. But in a moment, Minato reappeared on the battlefield, suddenly summoning an astonishingly powerful chakra coat. What is this? The Nine Tails chakra coat. Obito stopped in surprise. But in that moment of hesitation, Minato's astonishing speed instantly distributed the tailed beast coats to everyone he was fighting. It was like a sudden flash of golden light before him, incredibly fast and incredibly familiar. It brought that man back to him completely. Obito, stop. I've heard about your thoughts. You want to create another world, perhaps for Rin, but not everyone wants a world like that. If you continue to be so stubborn, I'll have to make the worst plans. As Minato spoke, the Nine Tails outer garments appeared on his body, but his eyes suddenly became horizontal, like those of a frog. Sage mode, combined with the Nine Tails chakra. While certainly not as powerful as Obito, the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, it was still a formidable force. Almost immediately, Obito finally confirmed that it was indeed Minato's return, but after a moment of panic, he became filled with extreme disdain. What a joke. Do you think I'm still the same last place finisher I once was? Don't think you can defeat me now just because you defeated me once. I'm not what you can imagine now. If you resist again, I'll make sure you never resurrect, Obito roared, clearly furious. The people who had fully recovered their chakra took advantage of this moment and suddenly launched an attack. Shisu untied Susanoo, and at lightning speed, he circled behind Obito with a sword burning with blazing flames, and slashed it on his back. Boom! The flames engulfed Obito. At this time, the Raikage, whose body was covered with violent arcs of electricity, also came close to Obito, and formed a sharp knife with 4 fingers, piercing Obito's chest. But both Shisu and Ai's attacks missed. The moment Obito's body became elusive, Amanuma's spear immediately stabbed Shisu. But Shisu's figure flashed, and he was immediately transferred away by Minato's Flying Thunder God. And in that instant, Minato appeared beside Ai again, and a huge Rasengan hit Obito. Kakashi, connect to his space. Yes, teacher. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197 Heavenly Obstacles and Shocking Star. Kamui, Kakashi, clad in the Nine Tails robe, saw the 3 Magatama in his eyes transform into a Mangekyo. After consuming Minato's Rasengan, he suddenly hurled himself at Obito. Bang! The massive Rasengan shattered half of Obito's body. This infuriated Obito, his eyes bloodshot. HMPH, don't think you can defeat me just by injuring me. The despair you're about to experience is far greater than that, Obito roared, his hands rapidly forming hand seals. Heavenly Shock Star, everyone watched Obito form the hand seals, but for a long time, they could see nothing. Then, a rumbling sound erupted in the sky, and a strong wind suddenly picked up. As everyone looked toward the sky, they could see a massive meteorite descending at high speed. The immense force of the impact sent the air reverberating with explosions, and flames ignited beneath the meteorite. As the terrifying meteorite drew ever closer to the ground quickly became dark, as if the apocalypse had arrived. Throw. One after another, ninja, powerless and completely defenseless, fell to their knees. Tears streamed down their faces in despair. How can we resist this? Is this something a human can resist, an attack like this? Can a human really stand up to it? We can't defeat them, and we're not even allowed to surrender. This so-called trial is just to kill us all. The shinobi alliance was filled with wails and cries of despair. Obito, however, looked down at everyone with a sinister smile. It was as if he had breathed a sigh of relief, released a great deal of anger. The expressions of those surrounding him were extremely grim. However, Minato made an immediate decision. Unoki-senpai, please use the light and heavy rock jutsu to allow me to fly into the air and deflect the meteorite. Unoki's eyes widened. You mean, to use the flying thunder god jutsu to deflect a meteorite that large? Are you sure you can do it? Minato nodded heavily. I think it should work. Please let me try. It's better than just sitting there waiting to die. Unoki nodded immediately and cast the light and heavy rock jutsu on Minato. But before Minato could take off, he himself flew towards the meteorite. Unoki-senpai, Unoki waved his hand. If you can't do it, I can slow it down a bit, just in case. After all, everyone in the village is here. If this strike lands, they'll be wiped out. Minato was confident, but Unoki was understandably concerned, so he didn't dwell on it. But after the two of them flew off, Obito's bloodthirsty expression reappeared. Haha, don't think you're safe just because they're up there. Tenseigan Tenyi. Obito wielded the Amanuma spear in one hand and aimed the other at Kakashi and Guy beside him. A sudden surge of gravitational force sucked Kakashi and Guy at breakneck speed. Bang! A puff of smoke rose, and Kakashi was transformed into a log. Guy's face suddenly flushed, his eyes blazing white. 8 gates of ninjutsu, 7th gate. Shock gate. Open. Blue chakra suddenly surged from Guy, and with a few steps he landed on Kakashi's wooden stake, suddenly breaking free from gravity. Adjusting his stance, he swiftly launched a mid-air kick at Obito. Daytime tiger, roar. A mighty beastly roar suddenly erupted, and a giant white tiger instantly condensed before Obito, charging towards him with astonishing speed and force. How, don't show off your skills with such tactics, Obito thought. And a truth-seeking jade flew out from behind him, instantly expanding to gigantic size. It actually blocked the daytime tiger, but the shield it had become was severely bent. This guy seems to have some real strength, but this level isn't enough. Just as Obito sneered, a knife suddenly slashed from behind. It was Fugaku who activated his Susanoo, his sword slashing down. However, Obito couldn't escape his notice, and his treasure-seeking ball quickly charged forward, blocking the attack. The same scene repeated itself around Obito. Even Sarutobi Hiruzen emerged from the ground and unleashed a 5-style blast at Obito. But the treasure-seeking ball completely enveloped him, rendering no ninjutsu effective. In fact, any ninjutsu that could strike Obito would have been ineffective to begin with. Meanwhile, facing the increasing pressure of the approaching meteorite, Minato had already reached directly beneath it, placing a hand on its base. Flying Thunder God Jutsu, concentrating for a moment, Minato's chakra suddenly erupted. In the blink of an eye, the massive meteorite vanished. A loud crash echoed from the sea, followed by a shower of spray, and then silence. But just as everyone breathed a sigh of relief, another dark massive meteorite, twice as large as the previous one, fell from the sky. Everyone's hearts, which had been relaxing, suddenly tensed up again, nearly fainting from despair. How? How could it be? How could there be another one? This isn't even a trial. It's a massacre. That guy didn't even think of letting us go. What a hopeless world. Rather than being mauled to death by a strange tree or crushed into pulp by a meteorite, it's better. The atmosphere on the battlefield was oppressive. Unoki, closest to the meteorite, gritted his teeth in anger. He actually flew directly towards the meteorite. His withered, skinny hands touched the meteorite directly. Now is not the time to give up. Don't underestimate the elderly. Super light and heavy rock jutsu. Buzz. The massive meteorite's descent suddenly slowed significantly, causing the immense air friction to stagnate for several seconds. But Unoki couldn't hold on for a moment, his face flushed and blood vessels popping, and both hands pressed against the meteorite. Soon, the meteorite's descent slowly accelerated again. Those who had thought there was a glimmer of hope, their hearts fell back into despair. This isn't a solution. It looks like it's time to use that trick. Just as the others were continuously attacking Obito, Guy suddenly stood up, his body straight, his tiger eyes fixed on the meteorite in the sky. Guy, what are you talking about? That trick? Let's team up to deal with Obito. I'll try to devour a little bit of that meteorite with Kamui." However, Guy shook his head. "No, Inoki-senpai can't hold on any longer, and Minato-senpai is exhausted. I'll crush him first, and you can help devour what I couldn't." Kakashi frowned. Aren't you trying to open the 8th gate? With so many people here, now is not the time for you to sacrifice yourself, Guy insisted. "If you don't make a decision now, it will be too late. My sacrifice is nothing compared to you who are more dangerous to Obito." Chapter 198 The 8 Gates of Dungia. Buzz! Suddenly, a powerful flash of light shot towards the meteorite, leaving a gaping hole as if a large chunk had been eaten away. Inoki was briefly aware of this, but upon seeing the figure flying overhead, he was completely stunned. Isn't this the Nadame? Is Orochimaru back again? Inoki, hold on. I'll use dust release to destroy the meteorite bit by bit. You continue to slow its descent." The second Tsuchikage, Mew, spoke, and he created several earth clones. They began floating around the massive meteorite and began devouring it bit by bit with dust release. Although these clones were sent by Orochimaru, they were actually orchestrated by Hyūga Teru to make things easier for everyone. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to defeat Obito. By this point in the war, the tide was already tilting heavily in Obito's favor. If the balance wasn't tipped, Hyūga Teru might have to take action himself. Seeing Mew's appearance, Guy and Kakashi stopped arguing and turned their attention to Obito. "Kakashi, how about you just cooperate with me for once? If Obito isn't destroyed quickly, and another meteor strike hits us, we won't have a chance to escape." Kakashi hesitated. But then, Guy pressed his finger against his heart. Bang, bang. 8 gates of the 8 gates. Death Gate. Open. A violent heartbeat suddenly filled the air, and Guy's chakra surged higher and higher, gradually turning blood red. Even his hair and eyebrows blazed crimson, as he transformed into a volcano poised to erupt, radiating an extremely dangerous aura. Kakashi was stunned, but no amount of effort could stop him. He could only agree from the bottom of his heart. "Guy, go ahead. I'll create an opening for you when the time is right." Guy gave a thumbs up and smiled. "Thank you, Kakashi." The moment his words fell, he shot out like a missile, sending the air around him resonating with the roar. Obito was horrified by the scene and quickly launched his truth-seeking ball. But in a flash, Guy vanished. Reappearing the next second, he dodged to Obito's side. Obito immediately entered hollow form, but how could Kakashi let him succeed? Kamui, Obito's hollow form was instantly shattered. At this moment, Guy suddenly launched an attack. 1 kick, 2 kicks, 3 kicks, 3 blows. Obito's body pinned down by the overwhelming pressure of the air cannonballs, completely immobilized. But Guy himself suddenly froze in pain, and, having previously been standing in midair, he began to slowly descend. His rock-hard brow furrowed in a frown. By this time, Obito's body had been shattered by the terrifying wind pressure, and he was falling from the air, broken and unable to move. What kind of technique is this? That my Guy actually possesses such terrifying taijutsu. The Raikage was stunned. Even though he prided himself on his taijutsu, he hadn't imagined such a formidable one existed. By this point, the others had mostly retreated to the side, leaving space for Obito and Guy. Although they wanted to help, it seemed they were completely helpless. Hearing Ai's surprise, the third Hokage explained with a heavy heart. Although he has now gained power beyond ours, the process involved immense pain unbearable for ordinary people. This is a ninjutsu that costs one's life. It's actually been used once before. Even Kirigakure, who suffered heavy losses, refuses to discuss it. Because the 7 ninja swordsmen had nearly been annihilated by Jinan, who had been unable to advance to the next level. It was then that Jinan used this forbidden technique. Hearing the third Hokage's explanation, Ai swallowed hard, a sudden realization dawning on him. So that's how it is. I seem to remember that battle, and I thought it was just a rumor, but I never expected it to be true. This guy, he can actually endure pain. Even his blood is burning. What kind of unimaginable pain is this? The third Hokage sighed. It must be inhuman pain, every part of his body burning. He has to use strength several times greater than his own. Every movement puts an unimaginable strain on his body. His father once used the move for Konoha. I never thought it would be his turn today. The third Hokage's sorrow touched Ai a little. But after a moment, Ai gazed at Guy with deep respect. To endure such physical pain and still be able to use such a powerful move, He must possess a fortitude far beyond the average person. This is definitely not something that can be achieved through ordinary effort. Any sadness is an insult to him. At such a passionate moment in his life, he deserves the utmost respect. As a battle fanatic, AI couldn't understand Guy more. Therefore, he displayed a completely different attitude from the third Hokage. The others, upon hearing AI's words, readily agreed, their pessimistic expressions vanishing. It wasn't long before even the pedantic third Hokage was suddenly enlightened by AI's revelation. So much so that those who had joined forces to fight Obito held Guy in deep respect. In fact, Kakashi, with tears in his eyes, watched Guy's every move intently. Guy, now summoning his strength, launched a powerful punch at Obito from the air, but still failed to kill him. He immediately dropped to the ground, poised to accelerate his run. Obito, already nearing death, stared at Guy intently, even attempting to retrieve the scattered truth-seeking balls. But how could Minato allow him to do so? In a flash of golden light, the truth-seeking balls vanished. Obito was now without any protective shield. It was too late to activate any other jutsu. Guy had already shattered the ground beneath his feet, closing in on Obito at a speed unfathomable to the naked eye. Night Guy, after reaching the desired position, Guy launched a futile air kick. All of the red chakra in his body, along with his unwavering will, transformed into a mighty red dragon. With unstoppable force, it charged towards Obito. No, don't, bastard. I deserve to die? You really don't deserve to die. Just merge with me suddenly. Zetsu, in stark black and white, stretched out his hands from the ground and immediately touched Obito. You'd better stop disturbing others, you half-human creature. Suddenly, Minato reappeared beside Obito and placed a hand on Zetsu. Zetsu's eyes widened, staring at Minato in disbelief. How is this possible? How did you know I'd show up? This is impossible. No, you can't take me away. Ow. Chapter 199 Peace Plan. The Crimson Dragon charged at Obito. Guy's foot struck Obito's head with a powerful kick. The immense force of the impact crushed his skull into the ground, leaving a hideous plow mark. Simultaneously, the violent friction and the blazing flames of Guy's body caused Obito's body to instantly turn red, igniting an intense flame that instantly enveloped him. Under the combined torrent of heat and brutal friction, Obito's resilient frame was ravaged by Night Guy. His head, in particular, was first reduced to charcoal. His body soon followed, scorching until only his legs remained. Thus ended Obito's reign of near invincibility. Guy's subsequent reduction to charred the third Hokage and the others, leaving them in tears. However, with Obito's death, the pressure on everyone's heart eased, and they focused their attention on the sky. With the help of Wu, the sky gradually brightened. With a final burst of dust release, sunlight once again reached the earth. The meteorite vanished. Woo. It was so hard, I finally survived, finally saved. It's so great to be alive. I thought I was dead, but thanks to those strong men, and thanks to my friends from other ninja villages. After a war that constantly teetered on the edge of life and death, almost everyone let go of their grudges, some even hugging ninjas from other villages and weeping bitterly. They marveled at the beauty of the world, the joy of being alive, and the reliability of their comrades. Not far from the battlefield, Hyūga Teru, holding Konan in his arms, whispered softly in her ear. So, are you satisfied with this result? Konan pouted, gazing at Hyūga Teru suspiciously. But this isn't what you said. You didn't kill him yourself. Hyūga Teru smiled and immediately performed the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. The scene shifted, and the two of them were in a basement filled with bottles, jars, and various laboratory equipment. A pale man was absorbed in his research. But suddenly, her whole body froze, but upon realizing it was Hyūga Teru, she immediately relaxed. She bowed respectfully to Hyūga Teru. Master Teru, according to your instructions, Wu has completed the destruction of the large meteorite. Any other instructions? Before Hyūga Teru could reply, Konan pointed at Orochimaru in surprise. This guy, when did he become your man? I was wondering why Wu suddenly came to help. It turns out Orochimaru has always been at your beck and call. Hyūga Teru nodded. Actually, there are many people who obey my orders. Everyone on the battlefield just now could be said to be under my orders. If you ask who eliminated Obito, on the surface it seems that it was indeed Guy, but in reality, it was me, the one who was plotting behind the scenes. Take Minato, for example. Don't you find it strange? Minato was dead for a long time, Yet he suddenly appeared on the battlefield and confronted Obito. After Hyūga Teru's reminder, Konan suddenly understood a lot. No wonder. But since you resurrected Minato Namikaze, did you also accept bribes from the people involved? Could it be that you also resurrected his wife? Konan's words embarrassed Hyūga Teru. Don't overthink it. I resurrected him simply because he would be more advantageous against Obito. You saw how the unfavorable situation changed dramatically once he entered the battlefield. Even a meteorite was deflected. Konan paused in thought, still curious. What exactly are you doing all this for? Are you too lazy to fight, or are you unable to defeat Obito, so you're borrowing someone else's strength? Hyūga Teru was amused, ruffling her hair. Your idea is a bit strange. Do you think that just because Obito's power has increased, he can defeat me? He has special abilities, don't I? He has the Rinnegan, don't I? Even his body isn't necessarily any tougher than mine. If you really can't let this go, how about I resurrect him and give you a beating? But that would clearly be a waste of my life. If you really want to get to the bottom of this, I'll have to gain more from you. Konan glanced at Hyūga Teru sullenly and said resentfully. From now on, I'll be at your mercy. It's up to you to do whatever you want. If you want to gain more, how can I refuse you? I'm just a little curious about your purpose in doing all this. You can solve it so easily, why go through so much trouble? As Konan asked, Orochimaru listened carefully. Although he could guess a little, he was still curious about Hyūga Teru's specific plan. Hyūga Teru, knowing Orochimaru was nearby, made no attempt to hide anything and spoke openly. Actually, destroying Obito was a piece of cake. My real goal is simply to bring world peace. Didn't you see the 5 great ninja villages united? Experiencing such a disaster together should foster a sense of shared camaraderie, right? At the very least, after a war like this, they won't fight for a long time. Konan nodded with understanding. And then what? If it's just a few years of peace, that's nothing, right? Haven't you considered what's next? Hyūga Teru smiled and stroked her cheek. It seems you're thinking too far ahead. I promised peace in the future, so there are certainly other means. It's okay to tell you now, but there are other enemies on the outer planets, each with a strength similar to Obito's. Faced with such pressure, what do you think the 5 great ninja villages will do? Will they continue to fight on their own? After hearing Hyūga Teru's words, Orochimaru and Konan were stunned. Both looked in disbelief. Although they knew Hyūga Teru was amazing, even the mastermind behind the apocalyptic war, they still couldn't imagine that Hyūga Teru knew about powerful aliens. But, what about the powerful aliens? Do these guys really exist? Konan blinked and said in disbelief. The aliens you mentioned, are they based on facts? If they really exist, it seems that they can indeed promote world peace, Hyūga Teru said seriously. Of course, I can actually predict the future. I have known about Obito's conspiracy for a long time, but all of this has been completely changed by me. Speaking of which, do you still want to learn more? Or do you suddenly want to go back on your word? Konan suddenly grabbed Hyūga Teru's hand and said unhappily. Really, you have your hand here? My meaning is very clear, okay? Speaking of which, when will you help me resurrect Uchiha and the others? That's what you promised. Hyūga Teru smiled slyly. Well, actually, I think it would be better to resurrect after the 2 of us are done. This is not a deliberate delay, but I am considering your face. Chapter 203 Years of Hard Work. Konan frowned. While she was happy about Obito's death, and she was somewhat certain it was Hyūga Teru's doing, she'd said before that Obito still had some use, and they'd deal with him later. But being with Hyūga Teru still made her feel a bit hesitant. After all, they hadn't interacted much, and suddenly being so close was hard to adjust to. What do you mean after we are done? There's someone else around. Didn't you say you could help with the resurrection first, and then we'd do that? Shy as she was, Konan felt anxious, fearing she'd been deceived. Hyūga Teru spoke gently. Actually, you don't have to worry at all. Once you become someone I cherish, it'll be easy to get my help. Forget about resurrecting others. Even if you want to go to the moon, I'll take you there. Konan frowned. You probably have a lot of other women. I don't want you to take me to the moon. Better to resurrect my friends. They're more important to me. Seeing Konan's adamant intention, Hyūga Teru could only sigh. Okay, but resurrection won't happen overnight. It'll probably take some time, but you should prepare well and exercise regularly, Hyūga Teru said, reaching down below, causing Konan's heart and body to tremble. Knowing she couldn't escape his grasp, and being warned so threateningly, Konan couldn't help but feel nervous. Hyūga Teru wasn't being impatient or deliberately intimidating. It was simply because the two of them hadn't had much affection before. While that didn't have much of an impact, it's true that love grows over time. Tsunade wasn't used to it at first, but now she's practically clingy, enjoying the same things he does every day. Tsunade herself described it as a sudden release of years of pent-up frustration, even a strange feeling of happiness within. Compared to Tsunade, Konan was probably feeling similar. After years of maintaining a stern face and pretending to be unapproachable, she'd armored herself like a hedgehog. But she was actually soft-hearted and longed for a solid support. This was Hyūga Teru's intuition, the intuition that came from years of actual combat, and the probability of error was extremely low. The main reason he wanted to intimidate Konan was that he had no feelings for her, and his charm was not recognized. But this was just a small frustration. After all, he would still do what he had to do in the future. However, he probably classified Konan as someone like Tsunade, and asked her to keep exercising. Naturally, it was also for her own good. The days passed. The resurrection of Yahiko and Nagato went very smoothly. However, they did not see Konan. Of course, this was not permanent. Because Hyūga Teru did not like to play tricks like imprisonment. He just knew that Konan still liked Yahiko, so he stopped her temporarily. How is it? They have gone far away. Are you satisfied? Before I knew it, Konan had tears in her eyes, nodded slightly, and leaned on Hyūga Teru's chest. Although you always have different feminine scents, even multiple, since you've already done what you promised me, I won't lie to you, do whatever you want, but I'm yours from now on. Just don't treat me badly. That's all I ask. Konan clearly had some sense, and her commitment to her words earned Hyūga's favor. Seeing Konan's pitiful appearance, Hyūga couldn't help herself. He brought her to a luxurious room he'd prepared and quickly stripped her like a lamb to the slaughter. For the next several days, Hyūga stayed with Konan. She seemed to enjoy his company more and more. The negative emotions she harbored were no less intense than Tsunade's. While not as open as Tsunade, Konan proved to be at tsundere. Once the lines of communication between them were opened, they became completely inseparable. Sometimes, even before Hyūga thought about it, she'd actively approach him, acting like a caring and attentive girlfriend. The communication skills he'd learned with Tsunade were put to good use with Konan. The once icy beauty's cheeks soon flushed, and her eyes held a lingering, hazy hue. She was noticeably more docile than before. 7 days passed, and Konan, from her initial immaturity, gradually matured, finally becoming completely attached to Hyūga Teru. This gave Hyūga Teru a great sense of accomplishment. Although it was an unconventional way of communicating that conquered Konan, it was a good start. While making significant progress on Konan's behalf, his research also gradually made greater progress. This was all thanks to Orochimaru's help. If there was anything he couldn't solve, he would show Orochimaru a look, and he would get many new ideas. 3 years passed. Hyūga Teru and Konan both had children. In fact, with the exception of Karuyura, he had a child with almost every woman. He also gathered most of the women in the most luxurious mansion in Hyūga. They lived a very comfortable life. Speaking of which, after the third Hokage abdicated, Tsunade became the new Hokage. After Madarumi and Hagura, Tsunade was the third Hokage. Hyūga Teru instantly became the Wind Kage, Mizukage, and Hokage. It's no exaggeration to say he's unprecedented and unmatched. Of course, this is just the minor details. The more important aspect, of course, is the research. After years of hard work and the participation of even more talented individuals, the container for the 11 tails has finally been completed. All that's left is for him to do is pour the 11 tails into it. Previously, he'd worried about losing control. But after years of signing in with the Uchiha, his Rinnegan has reached 999 Magatama. His strength has improved tremendously, but further improvement seems to require external stimulation or a journey to a more expansive location. Compared to traveling elsewhere, becoming the 11 Tails Jinchuriki is more appealing to him because it's easier to obtain and offers a greater chance of success. After all, 999 Magatama isn't something that just anyone possesses. He himself doesn't know how strong he is now, but surpassing Kaguya in the original story is a sure thing. But before that, he still wants to obtain the 11 tails and see how he changes. On the island of summoning beasts. After a twist in the void, Hyūga Teru's figure appeared in the island's laboratory. Seeing Hyūga Teru's appearance, everyone became excited. Because they had discussed with him a few days ago that he would come to fuse the 11 tails, and now he was naturally here as promised. After all, their years of hard work would be rewarded with a good result. How could they not be excited? The master is here. The master is finally here. That's great. We can finally see the results of the research. Yes, we have worked so hard for so many years. Success or failure depends on this one move. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.